the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
The Prime Minister's long-awaited energy plan to be announced today.
Good morning. It's 6 o'clock. It's Thursday, September the 8th. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
Nice to see you again.
Yeah, good to be back.
She had a day at school yesterday.
I did. Dropped off my little one.
Did it go well? Any
tears? It was lovely.
Yeah.
No tears. Lots of other mummies were crying as they dropped off their children, and I was dancing away. Delight.
My mother tells me that when she left me to school on my first day, that she left me and said bye-bye, and I went, whatever it is, and that was at 9 o'clock. And she stayed there until 2:30 until I came out again.
Oh, she loved you so much. We watched a live stream of the children settling in for about an hour and had coffee with the other mums, and I could see Poppy playing and really happy.
That's very fancy.
It's really nice because it just reassures mums that, and dads, obviously, they see their children looking nervous, apprehensive, tearful, whatever, and within 5 minutes they're busy and happy. And
but I thought you weren't allowed to tape anything at schools anymore.
You have to sign permissions and
permissions for all that. That's very high tech.
Very modern.
Very high tech. Very modern. A bit like us here on this breakfast show, the show that everybody is watching at this time of the morning, and if they're not, go and knock their doors and find out why. Here is what's leading our news today.
Millions of households will see their energy bills capped at around, we think, £2,500 a year under a much-anticipated energy support scheme being unveiled by Prime Minister Truss this morning.
Comes after she faced her first PMQs yesterday. She was accused by Labour of not having a plan to pay for her policies.
Meanwhile, the pound has plummeted to its weakest levels against the dollar since 1985. The Bank of England now says a recession is unavoidable this year due to the war in Ukraine.
And Prince George, Prince Louis and Princess Charlotte, as we've just been talking about, have all started school, becoming pupils at Lambrook in Berkshire. The school, which starts its term today, is situated close to the Cambridge's new home of Adelaide Cottage on the Windsor estate.
Let us know what you think about all of the subjects we discussed this morning. Email us, tweet us, you know the usual ways, get in touch.
Yes, or first day at school stories, either yours or your children's, where it went right, where it went wrong. And also, I think, the energy crisis. We're going to hear this big plan from the Prime Minister today. What would you do? Personally, I would turn out the lights on all public buildings. Floodlights on the front of museums, town halls, all that sort of thing. Because in Europe, they talk about saving energy. They talk about not draining their resources. Whereas here, we're talking about curtailing and capping the price that it costs.
I'm totally with you, and you go for the public buildings. I'm talking about personal responsibility. I think we should all be thinking about how we can save on energy rather than continuing in our own traditional way of spending, using, and then someone else having to pay.
Okay.
So with the time at 3 minutes past 6, our top story this morning, the Prime Minister will today lay out her much-anticipated plan to tackle the country's energy crisis.
Now, as part of this scheme, millions of you will see your energy bills capped at around £2,500 a year. that freeze will be paid for through governmental borrowing.
Well, our business and economics editor, Liam Halligan, breaks down what Liz Truss could announce.
Prime Minister Liz Truss knows that she needs to tackle the UK's energy crisis as her very first priority. Household fuel bills are soaring, given that rising Ofgem energy price cap. And UK businesses benefit from no price cap protection whatsoever, so they're facing even sharper price spikes. Last autumn, the Ofgem energy regulator capped the energy bills for a typical family at £1,277. That cap rose sharply to almost £2,000 in April this year as wholesale gas prices soared, with gas used to generate electricity, of course. And we've recently learned that from October, household bills are set to rise above £3,500 a year, almost a threefold rise in less than 12 months. As well as households, the new government needs to consider the impact of this energy price crisis on firms. Across Britain, all kinds of companies, from pubs, shops and restaurants to steel makers and manufacturers, they're seeing their energy bills spiral, even more than households. That's because that Ofgem energy price cap doesn't apply to firms, tens of thousands of which across the country are now at risk of bankruptcy. So what is this new government energy support package going to look like? Now, Rishi Sunak, when he was Chancellor, he announced a £400 grant to help all households. On top of that, more vulnerable families, those on certain benefits, they're due to receive an additional £650 a year. But these policies were set when wholesale prices were much lower, so it now looks like we need even bolder measures. Truss and her team are now expected to freeze energy prices for 2 years at April 2022 levels, scrapping that recently announced October Ofgem price cap altogether. And that's likely to cost the government around £100 billion. That's more than furlough. At a stroke, it doubles government borrowing this year. The reality is that this huge bill could soar even more. As the war in Ukraine drags on, those wholesale energy prices, they remain high and extremely volatile, not least with Russia restricting supplies of gas to Western Europe. One reason this energy support package is so expensive is that ministers have now indicated there will be assistance announced for businesses as well as households. To me, that makes total sense, because if countless businesses fold, we could have a jobs crisis too. But the cost that Liz Truss is going to announce is going to be sky high, and there's concern financial markets could rebel as the government tries to borrow much more. So this energy package is risky. Can the UK afford to do it? Or can we afford not to?
Eamonn Kona, Conservative political commentator, has been watching that report with us, and it's a big worry for so many people. Our own bills, governmental bills, economic growth. But let's start with Prime Minister's questions yesterday. So this is only the second day in the job for Liz Truss as the new Prime Minister. How do you think she's been doing so far?
So, as you rightly say, Eamonn, second day in the job and straight into Prime Minister's questions with Keir Starmer. I think what we saw yesterday was a very different style of Prime Minister's questions compared to what we saw with Boris Johnson versus Keir Starmer. There weren't really any of the sort of childish jokes that Boris Johnson used to be so famous for. It wasn't as fun. Liz Truss sort of came across more like the chairman or chairwoman of the board of a FTSE 100 company rather than a joker at an Oxford or a Cambridge society, which I thought was refreshing.
Yeah, and interesting to see former Prime Minister Theresa May on her feet, not this time criticising the current Prime Minister, which she did so many times during Boris Johnson's tenure, but there really giving her a goal to shoot, which she took advantage of.
Absolutely, and I think one of the really interesting things about that exchange in particular was that in Liz Truss's response, she said she was looking forward to getting advice from the former Prime Minister, which I understand is not something which Boris Johnson was too keen on getting advice from either.
So a relationship seems to already have been formed there, and no threat implied from it.
No, not at all. But I mean, look, these are two female leaders of the Conservative Party who are both alive and both in the House at the same time. And that is quite a powerful thing. I think one of the last things Theresa May said as Prime Minister was the second female Prime Minister, but certainly not the last. I'm not sure she felt that in just one Prime Minister's time there would be another female Tory Prime Minister at number 10.
And yet here we are, and today a huge announcement expected. Big spending from Liz Truss, very punchy move. But I suppose in many ways the long, protracted job interviews she described it as, where everyone was feverishly saying, we need action now, has meant actually as soon as she's in the job, she's able to provide this bounce, this response that people have been waiting for some time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that is an advantage from being seen as a winner from, really the beginning of the final round of voting to the membership is that you can probably be quite sure you're going to win, so you can actually start making a lot of these big plans in government. And of course, we had Nadhim Zahawi, the former Chancellor, also working on options for the new administration when they came in, so they could really hit the ground, not just running, but sprinting. Right. And so we're expecting to hear about this energy package today. Earlier on this week, I think it was mooted at 100 billion. Now we're hearing 150 billion. Sounds like a very expensive plan. And the question from Labour yesterday at Prime Minister's Questions was, how are we going to pay for it?
Yeah,
well,
that's scary.
And just on that, interesting to see on the front of the Eye this morning, former Chancellor, Conservative Chancellor, we should mention, Philip Hammond, saying he thinks that a future tax rise is inevitable if you're going to borrow to the extent that we're seeing, that we will all end up paying for it at some point. What do you think of that?
Well, someone's got to pay for it, Isabel, and there are only a number of ways that you
Why not the energy companies? That's what I say.
Well, that is the argument that Keir Starmer was making yesterday in Prime Minister's Questions. There's a couple of things about that point. First of all, a windfall tax would not raise £150 million. So there would still need to be some borrowing involved. OK, yes, less borrowing, but there would still need to be some borrowing involved. And I don't think Keir Starmer was particularly honest about that. The argument from the Conservatives would be, well, if we are going to be putting these unpredictable taxes on companies like windfall taxes, will that dissuade investment, especially in oil and gas companies that we need to invest in our supply to increase that supply and bring down prices?
Albeit, just hold on there and keep those thoughts going. We just want to add to what you're saying with a GB News viewer and listener, and that is Mike Moore. We say good morning to Mike, and he's in Devon.
Hello, Mike.
Watching us this morning. Hiya, Mike.
Hi, Isabel. Hi, Eamonn.
Good morning.
Good
morning.
to see you. Well, day two. What, Liz Truss, what do you think?
Well, like Nigel says, I'll believe it when I see it. But it's at least there's a difference between the Labour Party and the Conservatives now. Well, at least it looked like that in the Prime Minister's Question times.
OK, so you are sceptical about whether or not she'll actually be what she's saying she'll be, are you?
Well, yeah, I'm 67 now. I've seen quite a few things, and promises, and there's usually a lot of U-turns, isn't there, as they go through. Well, that's understandable, I suppose, but these are funny times, and I've been connected a lot through my work with energy supplies, only in residential settings. So, it's I've got a liking. I've got a bias towards this sort of thing,
Yeah, I mean, I can see, just to explain there, Mike was a retirement manager in residential homes, so obviously that cost is a big thing. I'm admiring your living room there as you sit there bathed in light. There's light all around you. Is it going to be a worry for you, Mike?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's early days yet, isn't it? It's not. It's October. I'll see it. But one of my concerns, Eamonn, is the in residential care settings. There's about 770,000 units in the UK of some different styles of independent living or care or nursing, and if a lot of them rely on electric style heating for safety reasons and things like that, but and they're managed by management companies, and if the prices go up sky high like that, they have to recoup their cost. And the only way they can recoup their cost is in the service charge, or ultimately in a surcharge, which is an absolute disaster for residents. I just don't see it. There's issues of bed blocking as well. So if you've got care homes shutting down because of extortionate heating cost or energy cost, where they're going to go?
Downward spiral, Mike. Downward spiral. Another interesting take on the energy crisis
absolutely.
there. retirement homes, residential homes like that. Mike, really appreciate your time this morning. Mike Moore speaking to us live from Devon, where you can see, we can see, Mike, it's getting darker in the mornings. It's getting darker at night. Winter's encroaching.
Winter is coming, as they say. Good stuff.
Mike switched his light out as well. Look at that. He's saving money already.
We're all going to have to be doing that.
Can't wait to get rid of his. Mike, thanks very much indeed. Really appreciate it. So it's interesting just when you think about who's affected by all of this, and we talk in terms of domestic bills. I mean, he's talking about care homes and residential homes, retirement homes, and everybody pays. At the end of the day, there's no escape from this, whether you're in business or whether you're just, tiding along in your own home.
Indeed. I mean, a lot of the conversation has been about the energy bills for families and the price cap which exists there. Of course, there is not a price cap for businesses or even public sector institutions like schools. So, Mike is absolutely right. What do these organisations do when their costs go up? Do they cut costs in other areas? Do they increase costs in other areas to sort of balance the books, if you will? What does that mean for people in care homes? What does that mean for children in school?
Well, I mean, we were just talking at the top of the programme. My little one had her first day in primary school yesterday. The head teacher addressed all the parents that gathered afterwards, and she said, I have never known funding for schools and the year ahead like I do now. And she said, let me tell you, teachers are now making donations to the school in order to keep it at the level at which they've become accustomed, and they were just begging us to set up direct debits, doing whatever we could to try and support the school just to keep it afloat. And she said, don't listen to anything anyone tells you. It's never been this bad.
Yeah.
And these are things that the new government will have to address. And we've not really heard very much about education at all throughout the leadership contest. And I think it is something that needs more focus from the government.
Albie, you're going to be seeing you throughout the programme this morning, so thank you very much indeed. Albie is a political commentator. He's co-founder of Conservatives Against Racism as well there. It's interesting you saying it's never been so bad, because it brings me into, the school I went to in Belfast, they were formed initially by usually religious orders because education wasn't getting to certain sectors of the population. So they were all voluntary. They weren't relying on state donations. So many schools around the UK would have initially been founded, whether they're Quaker, whether they're Catholic, whatever they are, they would have been voluntary contributions. We are going back to the 1800s.
Yeah. Well, it just made me want to make a donation there and then. I was worried, will they be able to keep the rain off this winter, let alone heat the classrooms? Worry. Anyway, look, we've been hearing what you think of Liz Truss's energy price plans, which we were expecting around 11:30 this morning. Meanwhile, our reporter Jeff Moody has been finding out how charities are preparing.
She promised to hit the ground running, and she has. Just days after taking over the reins at Number 10, Prime Minister Liz Truss is today expected to share her vision for solving the energy crisis. Details are scant, but not the hyperbole. Truss says her plans will be bold, nuclear and visionary. But will they work? Richard Lane from the UK's leading debt charity, Step Change, says there's no option for failure.
What we want to see is a package of measures that meet the level of challenge that we face as a country at the moment, which frankly is enormous. We need to see any further increases in price capped off, because we know that households, and not just low-income households, but millions of households are already struggling to afford to pay their energy bills.
Freshly crowned cabinet ministers have been meeting with the energy giants to thrash out the details in a plan that's expected to see the energy price cap fixed for 2 years. This would mean average household energy bills won't rise above £1,971 per year, amid dystopian warnings they could surge as high as £6,000. Councils across the UK have been hoping for the best and preparing for the worst. Bristol City Council is one of many setting up warm banks, heated venues where people can come and keep warm this winter. Members of charity organisation Community Leisure UK have been involved in setting up these warm banks. The organisation fears whatever today's plans, there will still be warm banks in our towns this winter.
I think it will obviously depend on the level of the price cap, but I think, certainly at current levels for energy for households as we move into winter is going to be very, very difficult. And obviously any price cap doesn't offset the spiralling cost of living more generally. So there's still going to be real pressure on household budgets as we move through the winter. So I think almost inevitably, with my gut, we will need at least some kind of provision to make sure that people are able to, save some money around energy and perhaps use that money for food or escalating costs that they have elsewhere.
Concerns too about how this subsidy will be repaid. The scheme is rumoured to be costing £100 billion in loans, a debt that could fall on taxpayers' shoulders in the long term. Age UK are concerned.
But I think we'll still have a lot of questions around the targeting, so the amount of targeted support is provided and the specific details of how it will be delivered and potentially how it will be repaid, depending on whether that's through general taxation or through consumer bills.
Questions for another day. For now, we wait and hope. Rarely is government policy so eagerly anticipated, but then it's not often we're faced a crisis quite like this one. The hope now for Liz Truss is she can take some of the heat out of the rising panic many are feeling. Only then will she keep the applause coming. Jeff Moody, GB News.
And with that, we bring you up to date with what is happening news-wise on this Thursday morning. Health leaders are warning that the NHS will feel extreme pressure in the weeks to come without government intervention. In a new letter to the Prime Minister, experts from across the health sector called for urgent action to address considerable pressure felt by frontline services.
The Queen has postponed a Privy Council meeting after being advised to rest by royal doctors. According to Buckingham Palace, the meeting, which was being held virtually, will be rearranged for a later date.
A new study published by the British Medical Journal has found a link between artificial sweeteners and heart disease. Researchers say that food additives should not be considered a healthy and safe alternative to sugar. They believe that they attack the cardiovascular system.
Now then, we're talking this morning inside The Sun. One of the stories they're running is about the most popular accents. Which accent is the sexiest?
Be awful to have an accent, wouldn't it? Be terrible.
Oh, I do love an accent. You know I love an accent. But you don't top the list, Northern Ireland. You come in a close second. Traditional Irish, a Dubliner accent, a Colin Farrell has come up top. 28% of people think that is the most irresistible accent. And I can't disagree.
Well, Salma Hayek, the actress...
Yeah.
said to me, "You're so like Colin. You're
Colin
so
Farrell?
like Colin." I said, "Colin who?" She said, "Colin Farrell." Don't talk anything like Colin Farrell.
I'll take a Colin Firth myself, a Mr. Darcy any day. I like a sort of Hugh Grant, Mr. Darcy. Apparently that's about 19% of people are with me on that.
Geordie's a nice accent,
yeah.
I think, as well. Yorkshire, I think, is a lovely accent. I do agree with you. I think accents should be celebrated, really. Scottish accent's lovely.
A Billy Connolly kind of Glaswegian accent. A Cockney accent, also quite attractive because they sound a bit naughty and a bit rugged. But I tell you, it's awful to say, but I'm not sure about a Brummie accent. And also, I did have a boyfriend with a West Country accent.
And?
I mean, look, I loved him to bits, but, they didn't sound the brightest, do they?
No, right. So you associate it with intelligence?
Yeah, don't you think?
I think people can cruelly do that.
Half.
I think the greatest thing, the greatest weapon the Irish have, of course, is that people look upon us and they think we're stupid. And we quite like that. We quite like.
I don't think
we quite like the English looking at us and thinking, especially the Southern English, looking at us and thinking they're stupid, they're paddies, and we think, there you are
I think
now.
Irish are quite
Just sign
rude.
here, that'll be fine.
Actually, speaking of Brummie accents, Cillian Murphy, who of course himself an Irishman with a very lovely Irish accent, did the most amazing Brummie accent in Peaky Blinders, and I think he made a Brummie accent quite sexy.
The worst thing is, and a lot of my own Northern Irish compatriots I will accuse of this, is people who have an accent and who are denying it, who sort of try and pretend it's not there. So they end up sort of sounding almost American. And people in Glasgow do this as well. Oh, I'm from Bearsden in Glasgow.
Is that why when people sound American that are from either of those sort of Celtic countries? It's because they're trying to suppress their accent.
Yes. Oh, yes, I'm from Cherry Valley in Belfast. Yes. And they have this voice, which is just, who knows where it comes from, but it's something a bit like that.
What is your favourite accent, though, on a lady?
French.
Oh, French accent. Yeah, you can't go wrong. I'll go with that for guys as well. Yeah. There you go. Let us know your favourite accent this morning. We're celebrating all kinds of accents, even those that don't really exist, sort of received pronunciation, as they call it. We like them all. Let us know your thoughts.
Do you think my accent's scary?
Not
Never,
at all.
never, never.
No, I've heard much scarier Northern Irish accents. Yours is quite sweet.
I can do it when I want.
Although I do love it. Please, just for my entertainment, can you say Nottingham?
Nottingham.
Birmingham?
Birmingham.
Buckingham Palace?
Buckingham Palace.
Buckingham, Nottingham, Birmingham.
Ruth used to say to me, she said she used to watch me on television, and every time I would say, Princess Diana is doing this today or that today, and she would laugh at me.
Why?
Because Diana.
Diana.
There you are. Anyway, talking about princesses, Charlotte, Prince George, Prince Louis, they've started school. We've got the pictures. We've got a royal roundup right after this weather forecast.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to Thursday's forecast. We're looking at, again, another day of heavy showers across the UK, some thunderstorms possible, but there will be some sunny spells too. And you may be used to a chart like this now, low pressure dominating the weather scene for the UK. Sat right across the UK, meaning outbreaks of heavy rain and showers for many, particularly the nearer to the centre of the low you are. And you can see those showers swirling around first thing Thursday morning across parts of Wales, the West Country, but pushing north and eastwards as we head through the morning. Some heavy downpours also first thing across Scotland, where Met Office warning is in force here for a time. Then into the afternoon, we'll see a mixture of sunny spells and showers for many of us. Showers heavy, thundery in places, some hail, disruption to travel. Temperatures generally reaching the low 20s, still warm in the southeast for the time of year, 23 or 24 as a high. Through Thursday evening, those showers continue. We do have to watch an area of heavy rain moving in off the North Sea for southern parts of Scotland and northern England. This slowly pushes its way westwards as we head overnight. Elsewhere, we'll see a mixture of clear spells and showers, perhaps showers frequent along the south coast of England, where it will be quite breezy. Brisk wind across the northeast as well. But for everyone, temperatures generally 13 to 16 Celsius. So we have this cloud across parts of Scotland, outbreaks of rain pushing its way, swirling around across into northwestern parts of England and Wales. Elsewhere, a mixture of sunny spells and showers. Showers perhaps most frequent in the east on Friday, but still some rain in the west, but less intense than what we've seen over the last few days. Brisk winds around the coast, but inland temperatures still reaching the low 20s, perhaps feeling a little fresher than it has done throughout most of this week. And into the weekend, well, we should start to see those showers ease ahead of further rain, which is likely to arrive from the southwest as we head into Sunday. And temperatures still not too bad for early September, reaching the low 20s for many of us.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
we're absolutely everywhere.
across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland. On TV,
on radio and online.
we're proud to be
The People's Channel, Britain's
news channel.
On the Mark Stein Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Stein Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome back at 6:28, still to come on the programme this morning.
6:45, we're marking Migraine Awareness Week. Terrible if you suffer from this. We're going to be talking to a 16-year-old whose migraines have even stopped her going to school. A lot of you will identify with that, and looking at what treatment options, more importantly, there are out there.
At 7:45, a new device could save hundreds of lives by helping women self-test for breast cancer at home. We'll be speaking to its creators who just won the prestigious James Dyson Innovation Award.
Yeah, these are two young girls who've just left university. Absolutely amazing. We're going to sing their praises. You can sing anyone's praises, or you can talk to us about anything that's worrying you or affecting you in the news today. You know what to do. There's the email, or you can tweet at GB News as well.
Now, today marks a new start for the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge and their three children as Prince George, Princess Charlotte and little Prince Louis officially start at their new school, Lambrook, which is near Ascot in Berkshire.
Well, it comes after the family made the move from London to Adelaide Cottage on the Queen's Windsor estate. Royal commentator Rafe Heidel-Mancu joins us now for the latest. Rafe, some lovely photographs over the front of the pages. Very happy families, looking very normal. We all know what that's like. First day at school for children, and a new school for these children.
Yes, well, those really are heartwarming images. The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge with the gang, as Prince William called them yesterday. They arrived yesterday afternoon for what's called a settling-in day, basically to get new first-timers settled into school before the first day of school starts this morning. They've basically decided to change schools. They were attending Thomas's prep school in Battersea, just down the road from where I live, actually. But they really felt that they wanted to give these princes and the princess a chance to actually grow away from the media spotlight, out of the goldfish bowl that is Kensington Palace, and actually also be closer to their grandmother, their great-grandmother, the Queen, and also to the Middletons, the Duchess of Cambridge's parents, who all live within basically half an hour's drive of the school. It's a great place to study and grow in. It's a school which is not one of the poshest schools, but it's a school that's very much devoted to not only academics, but to confidence, being socially aware and socially conscious, and also making people actively curious in the world around them.
Yeah, it's interesting, the selection of this school, I think. A lot of people talk about the fact that it's focused on the outdoors. It's quite old-fashioned, was the way it was described to me by one commentator. Not least you can see in the fact that the children's uniform, quite different from the Thomas's uniform. We saw Prince George starting his first day in a navy V-neck jumper and very smart polished shoes. They wear little check shirts, and they wear those when they're out in the fields and the forests, and a lot of outdoor learning. So they're going to have a lovely time there, I think, but it comes at quite a price tag.
Yes, well over £50,000 a year it's going to cost the Cambridges to attend. Right? No, as a group altogether, as a group altogether, between 50 and 73, depending who you ask, but certainly upwards of 50k. But yes, and with that comes a 52-acre estate. They've got a golf course, squash courts, beekeeping, all manner of activities, because the Duchess of Cambridge really enjoyed her childhood in the countryside, and she wanted to ensure that her children were able to enjoy that and also grow up outside of the public gaze. It's not, as you say, it's a very relaxed school. It's not a very famous. Lord Alfred Douglas, Bosie, Oscar Wilde's lover, was a school student there. There is a royal connection, though, because Queen Victoria's grandsons, two of them, went to the school, and Queen Victoria would often come down in the carriage to watch them playing sports. Whether our own Queen will do that remains to be seen.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Talking about our own Queen, and you're talking about growing old.
Yes, well, unfortunately, regrettably, the Queen has had to cancel yet another event, and unlike other events that have been cancelled, this was a virtual event of the Privy Council meeting that would have taken place at Balmoral with the rest of the Privy Council back in London. Now, we were rather encouraged by the photograph we saw of the Queen meeting Liz Truss at Balmoral. That was the first time in 6 weeks since the Queen went to Balmoral we had seen her in public. The last public engagement she had was with Princess Anne in July. We know that she didn't go to the Braemar Games this year. She had to pull out of that, the 5th time in 70 years she hadn't attended the Braemar Games. The traditional Balmoral welcome that normally greets the sovereign as a public ceremony outside, but that was also cancelled. So we should be concerned. But at the same time, we don't actually have any facts here, so it's very difficult to speculate because she is said to be just simply following doctors' orders after a busy day that she had with both the outgoing and incoming Prime
I
Minister.
had the most lovely thing sent to me this week. Isabel sent me a picture of her grandmother, and her grandmother was simply dressed the way we saw the Queen there.
Identical.
In a tartan skirt and cardigan. And
Same hairdo.
Same hairstyle.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Well, war generation, I mean, I often think she looks like my Nana, God love her. I mean, she's passed away now, would have been over 100, but that generation. But honestly...
I used to buy my mother those outfits,
Yes.
and then I realised she was never wearing them. So I realised that was...
But, you know, we talk about how Tuesday was exhausting for Her Majesty, and, you know, it happened very quickly in terms of the visits from Boris Johnson and Liz Truss. But there's an awful lot for a 96-year-old to do in preparation for that visit. I mean, she will have had her full hair and makeup done. We know she's very conscientious. She'll have read up on everything and made sure she was up to speed on everything. It's quite a lot.
It's a lot. You have to remember, this is somebody who should have retired 30 years ago. And the other thing to remember also is that we have had some positive signs. People who live in and around Balmoral have said that the Queen has been seen walking her dogs, unaided, without a walking stick, walking with a stick when she's gone onto rougher ground. So there are some positive signs here. But as you say, it's a big task for the Queen. The Privy Council meeting is when Liz Truss would have been sworn in. Normally, the Privy Council meetings since Queen Victoria's time have always been held standing up, a tradition Queen Victoria had to make them move faster, but I'm fully expecting that for the past couple of years the Queen has probably been sitting down.
Will Prince Charles step in and do this, or will there just be no royal oversight in this Privy Council meeting? Do we know?
Oh, it's going to be rescheduled for a future engagement.
Sorry, there we go, fine. Do we want to talk about Eamonn Scobie?
Do we have to?
I know. Well, I suppose we ought to, just because it's out in the public domain, isn't it? And
He is the mouthpiece for Meghan Markle, really.
Yes, and there's been lots of talk this week about how the Sussexes are in town. They're just in Windsor, across the park now from the Cambridges, Adelaide Cottage versus Frogmore Cottage, and they haven't met up. And according to Eamonn Scobie, this is because Harry thinks William hasn't been accountable for crossing the line and being there for him in Harry's darkest hour.
Yes, we go from the sublime story of the Cambridges to the ridiculous story of the Sussexes, as per usual. This really, I mean, to expect Prince William to apologise after all of the litany of insults and offence that have been caused by the Sussexes beggars belief. I mean, it's akin to, you know, Prince Harry digging himself a hole, Prince Harry throwing a ladder down, Prince Harry burning it, and then blaming Prince William for the entire episode. They both need to grow a pair and realise the country is going through a much more serious issue right now than petty, insignificant, vacuous issues.
Well, on that note, I think what more is there to say? There we go. Rafe Hadelmanku, thank you so much. We know you had a late night as well, so thank you for getting up bright and early for us.
Right, so what we'll do, we'll take a little break. We'll then be back with a lot of the newspapers. Norman Baker and Liz Kershaw delivering those to you right after this.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation.
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England,
Scotland,
Wales, and Northern Ireland. On TV,
On radio and online.
we're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Let's go through the papers now. And we do that in the company of Liz Kershaw and Norman Baker. Guys, very good to have you. Look, I suppose, Liz, we've got to start with the energy situation. The plan will be announced today by the new Prime Minister. The Mail's calling it Liz's Energy Revolution.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about capping on its own. The reason being, first of all, one of my questions is this. The poorest people, the people least able to afford gas and electricity, pay the highest tariffs because they're on pay-as-you-go meters, because they can't get credit ratings, so the companies won't bill them quarterly. How do you cap that? If somebody has to go to the corner shop to top up their card, how do you cap their energy prices? That's question number one. It's not that...
Did they get a refund?
They can't, because they're not billed. They're not actually... Nobody knows who the consumer is in a property if they're using that. It's just a plastic card they get from the landlord or whatever. So there's that. Second thing is, in tandem to this on the front page of the Times, there's the government's going to start a public information film. Do you remember those in the old days?
No, I do, and I think they're sadly missed. I'm a big advocate of public information.
Mr. Chumlin and Warner on the Harry Enfield show,
The Lions of Trafalgar Square. Pick it up. Anti-litter campaigns.
And what was he called? The squirrel? Tufty the squirrel and the Green Cross.
Crossing the road.
Anyway, it's about telling us to use restraint in our consumption of gas and electricity.
I think this is great.
That's a good idea.
it's great.
That's a good idea. But the other people are arguing that because demand for electricity and gas is price sensitive, so the dearer it gets, the less you're inclined to use. It's you know, if you say, OK, we're going to cap it at this, then people are perhaps going to be as restrained. And we should be. We should be all trying. Coming up later in one of the paper rounds, there's a whole feature in the Telegraph, probably got the most, rich readership of any newspaper, but they're telling you how to cut your energy bills. So I think, in a way, and it'd be better if we took up the policy of it. Was it the head of Eamonn suggested that what you do instead of a cap, you say the first however many therms or units that you use are at a very low price. And then if you go above that price, you pay more. Therefore, the poorest would benefit and the richest, if they've got a big 5-bedroomed house and they want to heat that, well, they'd pay more for it. But if you cut down, you benefit. So I'd say that. In tandem with this, of course, she's going to announce that she's going to stop the ban on fracking. We're going to exploit more gas. The storage tank's being reopened. That does take time. Another thing associated with this that I read this morning, Macron in France has given into pressure from what they call the left to do a tax grab on the energy companies. She's refusing to do that currently. So it's a very big challenge topic.
Well, out of all that, I like the idea of public information films going back. There should be an
onus... get the job. You could be the...
Well, no, there should be an onus on all television companies. ITV don't do it. BBC don't do it. It used to happen. GB News don't do it. We all should be doing it, and it should be about litter, and it should be about how to be good citizens and decent citizens and doing the right thing. And I think that should be brought back. But also, I think public buildings... and car showrooms and things, turn the lights out. We've got to do this thing that they're doing in Europe, talking about conserving energy as opposed to burning it and wasting it.
Well, the Swiss are going to say they're saying they'll lock people up for 3 years if they're found overheating their homes. I don't know how you police that.
Wow, OK.
Norman, what about the way the sterling is responding to Truss's announcements? Stock markets had a bit of an interesting day yesterday.
Well, yes, and sterling is plummeting, and it's gone down 15% against the dollar this year already. Now, this isn't simply abstract and unimportant to everybody's lives, because what this means is that we're now paying more for imports. It also means we're going to pay more for oil and gas because they're priced in dollars. So the danger is we're actually going to make the situation worse by the pound plummeting. We're in danger of the pound actually coming to parity with the dollar, which has never been, and that's a serious matter. I mean, the Financial Times this morning, which knows about these things, I guess, as a paper of finance, talks about this package of Liz Truss's package, which, by the way, she was calling handouts a couple of weeks ago. She endorsed this package. This package is going to be funded by government borrowing, adding to demands in the economy at a time when inflation is already above 10%. It will make inflation worse, which again will then cause the markets to react badly and will bring the pound down even further. So this isn't a very good economic outlook. And I have to say, the combination of big tax cuts, which were still promised, I think, plus massive expending now, which is bigger than the furlough money which was spent at the time, does strike me as economically rather dangerous for the country. And
what do you make of Philip Hammond's comments, former Conservative Chancellor, saying, it's all very well coming out and increasing borrowing, but this will have to be paid for at some point, and it's going to end up being a tax rise just further down the line. Once again, the next generation are going to have to pay for it.
Well, I know Philip very well. We were in the Department for Transport together. A lot of time for Philip in terms of his financial assessments. He's quite right. There's nothing for nothing in this world. Someone's got to pay for it. My view is that the oil producers the energy producers should be paying for some of this. They're making absolute record profits. They don't know what to do with the money.
Well, we had Eamonn arguing strongly against that this morning, and you'll hear that a lot from the Conservatives.
Norman, what you've just said seems quite logical, and then you get people looking at you as if you're a nutcase. What? Tax, windfall tax, whatever. But even the profits are so excessive. You can say, well, give us some of it. Give us some of it back.
This idea they'll stop investing, what absolute nonsense. Of course they won't stop investing. Of
course they won't.
This is extra money they weren't expecting. They've got an investment plan which can carry on without anyone interfering with it. It's the massive excess profits.
Well, but doesn't it give the message to companies that invest in this country that if you have big profits, watch out, because you know what, HMRC might suddenly decide to dip their hands in, and it's a deterrent.
No,
well,
these are exceptional profits in exceptional circumstances.
We're only saying
we are in an energy crisis. People talk about a climate crisis. This is an energy crisis.
I understand the moral, how disgusting it is, but I can see also that it will deter business.
Well, I don't think it will, because the profits are so enormous, it depends how much you take. But look, come back to Philip Hammond's point. Who's going to pay for all this in the end? Is it the oil companies who are busy probably sitting on the beach enjoying themselves, or is it us as taxpayers?
Yeah. So it is, do you know what? I can't use the word on air, but the whole thing's a state of chaos. Chassis, they used to say.
It's a difficult
Sean
time.
O'Casey used to say, it's a state of chassis.
Yeah, but it's not. It is all caused by Putin.
Yeah.
And he's now saying, cap prices and I'll just cut off supplies altogether. I'll make the earth freeze over for you lot in Europe.
Yes.
I'm turning to Asia. And he holds all the cards.
Well, we're going to fix that today. We've got...
Yuri Geller. What, a CIA assassin?
Basically, he could well have been at this time, I don't know.
Yeah, he can
but
kill
we've
him by
got Yuri Geller gonna probe him.
Yeah, bend his spoons.
Bend his spoons there.
Should we talk about the Bill of Rights being spectacularly dropped? And we're sticking with the Human Rights Act, Liz.
Yeah, this is prompted mainly by the boats arriving on the shores of Kent and the fact that, whether or not you approve of Priti Patel's Rwanda plan, it was a government initiative was scuppered by the courts of human rights with the Bill of Rights, the European...
Well, Liz,
European Court of Human Rights.
Liz, right.
So you've got to do something to dissuade people.
Except they're not going to do it. Right, so here's the whole point. Talk tough, headlines, people like us talk about, oh, Justice Secretary, this is amazing, what are you going to do? I'm going to stop everybody in their tracks. It's all, as I keep saying in this programme, it's all talk, and you lot suck it up, and you think, oh, this is going to happen, but it ain't going to happen.
What's not going to happen?
This Bill of Rights.
Well, they can scrap it if they want to. Now we're out of the EU.
But
it's not.
The point is, are they going to bring it in or not? They said they were going to bring it in.
They're going to make sure that our courts aren't hampered by European laws.
It's not Europe. Can I just be clear on that? The European Court of Human Rights is not related to the European Union. It predates the European Union.
Okay, but
it's something we created actually after the Second World War.
Okay, I stand corrected, but we can do this if we want to. So
we're not going to do it. That's my point.
But what do we do?
We say we're going to do it, and we're not going to do it.
Well, perhaps this government under Liz Truss will do it, but
they're not going to do it. It's been dropped.
So far, I've had 28,000 people land in Kent this year. That's as nearly 1,000 short of the people who landed in 12 months last year.
We know that.
Something's got to be done.
So then Dominic Raab says, let's do this, and whatever.
It's gone now.
Well, and it's gone with him. So what I'm trying to say is, what are the policies? You and I are arguing about the same thing here.
Right.
They say they're going to do something. We all say, here, well done. And there's no chance of it being done.
OK, well, I'm not a parliamentarian or a lawyer, so all I take from it is that something is going to be changed so that you're not hampered by endless...
But it's not going to be changed.
Get a word in here. No one wants to
There's a dialogue over here. But look, I mean, can we get this perspective? No one's very happy about the number of people coming into the country by boats and everything else. But in terms of perspective, the number of people who come to Britain is the 18th highest in Europe. There are 17 countries in Europe who get more people coming in than the UK does. Just important to make that point.
Well, the UK is currently the most densely populated.
No, the Netherlands is actually.
No, it's overtaken.
It doesn't matter. It shouldn't be happening. It's happening. It's a right blooming mess. And there's nobody, Norman, that's going to say 10 million extra people in the last 10 years is a good thing for the country.
No. Well, you've got to ask yourself why people... You've got to go back to basics, actually. Why are people seeking to move around the world in this particular way? And the fact that we're cutting overseas aid, which people don't like overseas aid, but overseas aid is partly about stabilising countries, keeping people where they are.
Well,
that's what it's about.
We had a former Home Secretary yesterday, Alan Johnson, who said basically they're coming to this country because they can disappear. They don't have to have ID cards, so they can come into here and they can just become invisible. However, we just raised the subject. We get everybody talking about it. And we're going to see you guys again in 40 minutes' time, and we're going to give you an up-to-date situation with the news. Here's what's happening.
Well, the Prime Minister could bring back fracking as she unveils her long-awaited energy plan to tackle the energy crisis. Liz Truss will also announce her plan to help households and businesses struggling with the rising cost of living later today. Pictures have been released showing Prince George, Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis on their first day at school. The siblings were accompanied by their parents for a settling-in session at Lambrook near Ascot. And Australian tennis player Nick Kyrgios has received the biggest fine of any player at the US Open after destroying not one, but 2 rackets during his quarter-final loss yesterday, as well as spitting and swearing. The 27-year-old's been ordered to pay around £12,000, taking his total fines for the tournament to £28,000.
That's huge. Now, look, here we are. We're in the middle of what is Migraine Awareness Week. If you suffer from a migraine and you do it regularly, our commiserations to you. Absolutely awful. We're going to talk about a new report which has revealed that schools don't have resources or information to help children who suddenly find themselves experiencing this.
Yeah, according to NHS England, around 10 million people suffer from migraines, including Evie Fagg-Shuttlewood, who is 16 years old and lives with a form of migraines called vestibular migraines. And she joins us from Kent this morning, along with her mum, Liz. Good morning to both of you.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning.
Evie, how bad does it get? Tell us how bad it is with you.
I have 3 types of migraine, which definitely is very a lot. I can have up to 3 migraines. That's like your classical ones that a lot of people know, which is like pain, light sensitivity, sound sensitivity. But I have bariatric migraines and vestibular migraines, which I get around those on those days. So it definitely feels a lot of me just feeling unwell.
Evie, we just having a little technical issue here, and we're going to try and re-establish the communication with you. And while we're doing that, we're going to bring in Dr.
Yes.
Jessica Briscoe.
Yes,
on
so
all
Jessica,
this.
just talk to us a little bit. I mean, we couldn't hear what Evie was saying, but vestibular migraines are a specific type that can cause vertigo, that can cause nausea and vomiting. Incredibly difficult to cope with at any age, but at the age of 16, Evie would be telling us if we'd got the connection there, that it's meant she's having to be off school a great deal, and actually homeschooling has become the only way for her.
Yeah. I think the problem with migraine is a lot of people think it's just a different form of headache, but actually the more debilitating symptoms are the things that people don't think about. So, as you mentioned with vestibular migraine, it's things like dizziness, balance difficulties, that sort of vertigo, feeling like the room's spinning. Light sensitivity is often a big problem. Other sensory sensitivities as well, so difficulty with sounds, moving around, so even moving your head or things like that. Nausea and vomiting are big issues as well.
Doctor, these are the awful consequences of this terrible condition. I suppose anyone who is suffering from it or knows someone who's suffering from it will simply want to know, are we any closer to finding a cure to migraine?
I think it's going to be really difficult to find a cure because migraine is a complex neurological disorder which is actually genetic in its origins. So there are lots of different genes available that are implicated in migraine. There are new treatments coming out, and there are some that have been available in the UK for a few years now, which make migraine more manageable. But we find it very difficult to completely eradicate it from people.
And in terms of the treatments that are available, I mean, I've only had a couple of migraines in my life, but I don't think I have a propensity to them. It's just when I've had a hugely emotional event.
But have you had a migraine or have you had a headache?
I mean, well, when I had the first ever migraine, my dad had just been admitted to intensive care and we thought he might not make it. And I was jumping in the car from Bristol to drive home and be in intensive care with Dad, and I just got struck down by migraine and I couldn't move for 24 hours. I just lay in bed, and it was clearly an emotional thing. But my understanding is the treatment of it often, it almost sort of knocks you out just to get through...
your body to cope with the attack.
And you can't live with that sort of medication.
Well, you shouldn't be treating it like that.
Right.
So a lot of people take things that will knock them out because actually, as you said, you can't move, you can't be around lights, you can't be around sounds, you're vomiting all the time, you just want to be lying still in a dark room. But actually, we should be giving treatments, and there are treatments available that actually should mean that you can get back to work quickly.
Back to work, or in Evie's case, maybe back to school. We'll try and reconnect to you, Evie, and Mum Liz there as well. Evie, what do you want, if we can hear you okay, what do you want schools to be aware of, or what do you want in place in schools for people like you?
I think one of the big triggers for me is the electronic whiteboards. They really quickly trigger a migraine for me, but there's not really any other way to learn now in school. Like 10 years ago, those things weren't the main source of education, but now it's like the main part of the lesson, and that would just give me a migraine.
You see what, in this energy crisis, Evie, that's the first thing I'd be getting rid of is these electronic whiteboards.
Bring back chalk.
Bring back chalk. But listen, I want to hear from your mum, Liz, because how difficult as a mum in all of this, you must feel incredibly helpless and frustrated at the lack of support and cure in all of this.
Yeah, I mean, it is a full-time job as a mum, trying to almost feel like I've got to try, as a mum, you feel like you've got to fix something. So my life is spent trying to get answers. I spend a lot of time on the internet. I spend a lot of time with Evie at doctor's appointments. I mean, she's had this migraine and hers are very dizzy migraines, and they're affected by weather. So if it's rainy or stormy, she can't function. And you just spend a lot of time with doctors and they don't really seem to listen and don't really feel like you're getting any treatment or help. And then with the school side of stuff, you know, nowadays, if your child doesn't attend school, you can get threatened with court, which we have in the past. So I spend a lot of time trying to sort out EHCPs, trying to get the right help in place. And in fact, Evie has not managed to attend school for 4 years. She cannot make it into the classroom. She started at a new school on Friday, and the support we asked for wasn't in place.
Well, look, I'm not going to blame Dr. Jessica Briscoe on this, but she can hear what you're saying, and you're saying, you know, maybe there is a propensity towards doctors to say, look, have a couple of tablets and sort itself out. I don't know. I don't wish to be cruel to doctors about this, but is understanding at the level that you want it to be?
I mean, definitely not. I think it's not just doctors, it's pharmacists, all sorts of healthcare professionals. I think, I think it's true that people can dismiss migraine, and that's actually a lot of what this week is about, and that's a lot of what the charities are doing to try and improve GP and other healthcare professional information, because people shouldn't be being dismissed like this.
Will this be a lifelong battle for Evie, or do some people grow out of migraines, as it were, the sort of way some people do with hay fever, or whatever it might be?
I mean, it's genetic, so she will have the propensity for life, but hopefully she'll find times of her life that are easier. Adolescence tends to be the worst time, especially in girls, because hormone levels are fluctuating. School can be a big trigger, lots of stress and things like that, which can.
But Evie, I was shocked to hear from your mum there of all the things that I thought may trigger this, and you were talking about the electronic boards, use in school and whatever. But that your mum was saying, if the weather was stormy or a lot of rain coming down, really? Tell us more.
Yeah, I have sort of two types of migraines that can be affected by the weather. I have a barometric one, which causes pain when it rains. And then my vestibular migraine gets really easily triggered by bad weather or the change in weather. So it's really uncontrollable half the time because you can't limit that trigger.
Born in Kent, you need to move to the Costa del Sol, don't you? Barometric migraines will be a thing of the past.
But sunlight can also trigger migraines.
Oh, no good. Oh.
Guys, we've got to say goodbye to both of you. It is Migraine Awareness Week, and Evie and Mum Liz, thank you both for raising attention in this, and the good doctor in the studio here, who is an NHS GP headache specialist at Guy's and St Thomas's headache centres. It's amazing that it's so serious that you have a headache centre.
Absolutely.
As such. Good luck to you and the work that you do and in raising awareness of this as well, Doctor.
Yeah.
Thank you all very much indeed.
Wasn't Evie amazing? I wouldn't think she hadn't been into a school for 4 years. Really tough to deal with at that age. Let us know your thoughts on everything we're talking about this morning, and stay with us after the break. We'll be talking about the new Prime Minister and her big plans to sort out the energy crisis. See you in a moment.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation.
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. On TV,
On radio and online.
we're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
The Prime Minister sets out her long-awaited plan to tackle the energy crisis today.
Folks, wherever you're watching, wherever you're listening from, a very good morning. Good to have you on board just after 7 o'clock. Thursday, September the 8th.
This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn Holmes and Isabel Webster. Here's what's leading the news this morning.
Millions of households will see your energy bills capped at around £2,500 a year. This is under the energy support scheme being unveiled by the new Prime Minister Liz Truss this morning.
It comes after she faced her first PMQs yesterday, where she was accused by Labour of not having a plan to pay for her economic policies.
On the markets, the pound has plummeted to its weakest level against the dollar since 1985. Bank of England now saying a recession is unavoidable due to the war in Ukraine.
And Prince George, Prince Louis and Princess Charlotte have all started school today. They've become pupils at Lambrook in Berkshire.
Look, get involved in the conversation. You know what to do. There's the email address. You can tweet us as well at GB News.
So to our top story this hour, the Prime Minister will today lay out her plans to tackle the country's energy crisis.
We're hearing today that the pound has slid as the markets shudder at the scale of the challenge facing Liz Truss. And as part of this scheme, millions of you will see your energy bills capped at around £2,500 a year. That freeze is being paid for through borrowing.
All the analysis that you need now from our business and economics editor, Liam Halligan. He breaks down exactly what our new Prime Minister is expected to announce.
Prime Minister Liz Truss knows that she needs to tackle the UK's energy crisis as her very first priority. Household fuel bills are soaring, given that rising Ofgem energy price cap. And UK businesses benefit from no price cap protection whatsoever, so they're facing even sharper price spikes. Last autumn, the Ofgem energy regulator capped the energy bills for a typical family at £1,277. That cap rose sharply to almost £2,000 in April this year as wholesale gas prices soared, with gas used to generate electricity, of course. And we've recently learned that from October, household bills are set to rise above £3,500 a year, almost a threefold rise in less than 12 months. As well as households, the new government needs to consider the impact of this energy price crisis on firms. Across Britain, all kinds of companies, from pubs, shops and restaurants to steel makers and manufacturers, they're seeing their energy bills spiral, even more than households. That's because that Ofgem energy price cap doesn't apply to firms, tens of thousands of which across the country are now at risk of bankruptcy. So what is this new government energy support package going to look like? Now, Rishi Sunak, when he was Chancellor, he announced a £400 grant to help all households. On top of that, more vulnerable families, those on certain benefits, they're due to receive an additional £650 a year. But these policies were set when wholesale prices were much lower, so it now looks like we need even bolder measures. Truss and her team are now expected to freeze energy prices for 2 years at April 2022 levels, scrapping that recently announced October Ofgem price cap altogether. And that's likely to cost the government around £100 billion. That's more than furlough. At a stroke, it doubles government borrowing this year. The reality is that this huge bill could soar even more. As the war in Ukraine drags on, those wholesale energy prices, they remain high and extremely volatile, not least with Russia restricting supplies of gas to Western Europe. One reason this energy support package is so expensive is that ministers have now indicated there will be assistance announced for businesses as well as households. To me, that makes total sense, because if countless businesses fold, we could have a jobs crisis too. But the cost that Liz Truss is going to announce is going to be sky high, and there's concern financial markets could rebel as the government tries to borrow much more. So this energy package is risky. Can the UK afford to do it? Or can we afford not to?
That is the question. But you know, I come away with that and I think, who would want the job?
I know.
You're darned if you do, darned if you don't with this one. And in the studio now we have Conservative political commentator Albie Amankona about this, economics commentator Laurie Laird, and we're also joined down the line by the Associate Editor of the Daily Mirror, Kevin Maguire. So, Kevin, Liz Truss has got the job. I said, who would want the job? She's got the job. And day two for her in the job. What did you think of day one?
Yeah, I could name one other person who wanted it, Rishi Sunak. I'll put in a third, and that's Keir Starmer. There's no shortage of candidates for that job. The big test is today. When we see the colour of the money, the support, it is the biggest single issue facing her. But yesterday, at Prime Minister's Questions, I thought she did pretty well. She's a lousy public speaker, but she is much better in the House of Commons. I thought she played it rather well because she had Conservative MPs, and most of them didn't back her, but they were behind her. Keir Starmer has a problem in the sense that he must be careful not to appear to be bullying a woman, particularly in her first full day in the job. But the big dividing line we came away with from those exchanges was over the windfall tax to fund an energy policy. Both parties are pushing for a cap. Labour would freeze it. She's going to cap it slightly higher. But do you fund that in part with a windfall tax or not? And she's against that. So she could say Labour is tax and spend, but Labour then can say, hang on, Liz Truss and the Conservatives, they're still spend but don't tax.
Well, let me bring in Albie Amankona and all of this, a Conservative commentator. And Albie, of course, there is a windfall tax coming in that Rishi Sunak announced just before this leadership contest. So there is a smaller windfall tax than perhaps Labour would like to see. But you feel that's just about right?
Yes, I think the windfall tax at the level that it is when Rishi Sunak brought it in was the right policy to pursue. The question about this new energy plan, because the situation has deteriorated, is how do we pay for this energy plan? Now, I actually think the dividing lines between Labour and the Conservatives on this are actually quite small. They agree that there needs to be a big package to help families and businesses, a big one, 100 billion, 150 billion, as we were discussing earlier. Bigger than the furlough package. Bigger than the furlough package. I think almost as much as we spend on the NHS each year. How are we going to pay for it? That is the dividing line. Labour wants an extension of the windfall tax. The Conservatives seem to want to add it to the national debt.
Well, albeit I have an economics commentator in the form of Laurie Laird here. You say, how are we going to pay for it? Is there a dividing line between what the government want, the political ambition, and what the Bank of England feels can happen?
Well, I think you're right, Albie, where there's not much between Labour and the Conservatives. Big gap between the Conservatives and the markets and the Bank of England on the side, because, of course, the Bank of England's going to have to set interest rates depending on what this fiscal policy is. But let's talk first about the borrowing. This is the big question. Can we borrow this much? The markets are not liking this right now. We've seen interest rates, market-based interest rates. And let's look at the 10-year gilt. That's what the UK has to pay to borrow for 10 years. The yield on that has gone to 3% from just under 1% early in the year. That's a massive, massive rise. That said, we're not to the 5, 6, 7% that we've seen in decades past. So I'd argue that we can still borrow at the moment, but it's a risk. It's a massive risk.
So how do we pay it back? Through taxation?
Through taxation over the years. Or if you're Liz Truss, you think that somehow magically I'm going to cut taxes down the road. That's going to spur some kind of growth. If we spur growth, people will pay more taxes. There'll be more in the exchequer. So somehow magically we can pay this all back over the years. It's a bit...
But there is going to be a bit of growth. I understand the economics with the pound falling in value against the dollar because oil and gas is paid in dollars, and therefore that's going to cost us more on that front. Yet it makes our goods more affordable to the rest of the world, doesn't it? Which gives into the Liz Truss theory of everybody's going to get into work and everybody's going to earn revenue for the exchequer.
And we'll be on the sunlit uplands and everything will be fine. You're absolutely right. You've got the mechanism right. If the pound is weaker, the stuff that we send abroad becomes cheaper for them. They may want to buy more of the stuff that we make. But on the other side, the stuff that we're importing becomes more expensive, and we import a lot more than we export. We have a massive trade deficit, at least in goods, not so much in services. So this could possibly, the fall of the pound tends to be inflationary because everything that we import becomes more expensive. And you mentioned the Bank of England. They spoke, a bunch of Bank of England leaders, a whole cavalcade of Bank of England leaders were before the Treasury Select Committee yesterday. It was pretty clear that they don't quite know how to model this. Hugh Hill, who's the chief economist, was asked, is this inflationary, this new package? He said initially it will bring inflation down, but because people are paying less for energy, they have more disposable income, they may spend it. So that could be inflationary down the road.
I mean, essentially what you're saying, Laurie, and I want to put this to you, Albie, is this is a gamble. And this is a gamble that Liz Truss's reputation will now be judged by. And as Rishi Sunak, I'm sure, will be able to testify to, it's very easy when you're handing out the cash, when you're splashing the cash. It's much harder further down the line when you've got to try and balance the books.
Isabel, it is a gamble. The question for Liz Truss is it the right political gamble at the time that we're in? The Conservatives have been in power for the last 12 years, and I think we can all agree that things at the moment are not good. So what I think Liz Truss is banking on is that by changing track, she can say, well, I'm going to do things differently. The economists that I'm working with think austerity was wrong, as many of them have said. Gerard Lyons, Patrick Minford and Julian Jessops have all said that. She wants to change tack and see if that is going to keep the Conservatives in at the next election.
Kevin, is it something that will keep the Conservatives in at the next election? I mean, you're listening to this. I wonder, do you feel like me and you think... Sorry, can we see Kevin, please? Yeah. I wonder, do you think like me, Kevin, and you think you go out there, you earn your wages and you collect them at the end of the month and whatever it is, but all of this is beyond us. It's beyond mere mortal people. We're caught up in some sort of maelstrom, and goodness knows what way we're going to come out of this.
No, I think that's right. It's a political gamble, it's an economic gamble, but it's a gamble she has to take. Because people, through no fault of their own, are watching their living standards absolutely destroyed. So just people on low incomes who are really getting hammered, but people on middle incomes who are very comfortable in the past, could afford to go on holiday and so on, all of a sudden their disposable income is just being wiped out. And if she didn't take action, particularly when Labour, the Liberal Democrats and the SNP are all arguing for price freezes, she would have just been hammered and she'd be signing the death warrant of the Conservative Party at the next election. She clearly doesn't want to spend this money. In fact, she was dismissing energy support as handouts. Well, she's probably going to give the biggest handout in history now, because she has no alternative. Just sitting back.
An alternative, Kevin. She has an alternative. And I want to put this to Laurie, and I want your opinion, Kevin, as well, which is the moral responsibility on big industry. Does big industry have any moral conscience? If you're you're exploring, you're doing these oil explorations and gas explorations, and you think, do you know, it's a bit embarrassing, the amount of money we're making. I know we like a few quid. We might like to make a bit of that. But this is just embarrassing. Do they not have, or should they, Kevin, have some sort of moral conscience where they say, do you know what, guys, we've got more than enough here. Have some of what's on our table.
Well, I believe they should, but often they don't, because they owe their primary legal responsibility to their shareholders, who are doing very, very well out. And so we've seen it with BP, we've seen it with Shell, we've seen it with Centrica, the owner of British Gas, which reintroduced the dividend. It's why the government has to step in and represent everybody else, the ordinary people, the people of Britain. That is the only way to do it. I think she is making a mistake on not raising the windfall tax she's inherited from...
Well, let's go to our economist, Laurie, on this and see what her argument is for or against windfall taxes.
We can only impose a windfall tax on oil and gas coming out of the ground in the UK. When we talk about BP and Shell, we can't tax them on stuff that they're getting out of other places.
Or we've said the wrong picture, because they're making this money out of Venezuela, for instance.
They're making money all over the place. And I think that windfall taxes now for these companies, they're a soft target. They probably should say, you know what, we're going to give up a little bit more voluntarily just for the optics. And in fact, the head of Norway's biggest oil company a couple of days ago came out and said, tax us more. It's absolutely fine. It's a good PR exercise. But these guys don't make money all the time. The oil companies lost a bundle in 2020 and 2021. I know.
Private pensioners in the UK, a lot of people's pensions tied up in the profits.
Look, I'm no apologist for big oil here, but these are long investment horizons. These are billions of pounds of investment. The investment cycle is long. So you've got to look over the whole investment cycle for these companies.
We've got to leave it there. Laurie Laird, Albie Eamonn, and also to you, Kevin Maguire. I've got to say, it was loving your Guernica Picasso behind you there. I haven't seen that as your backdrop before. We normally have lots of fancy bookshelves, but a bit of Picasso never goes wrong. Thank you.
No, I thought, go back, I thought that was an air conditioning unit. You see that one top left there? I thought that was a grill.
Honestly.
A grill from an aircon unit behind him there.
This is a beautiful modern art wall behind Kevin Maguire.
Thank you. Spoilt by Kevin's big face in the middle of it, but anyway. 17 minutes past 7 now. Another industry struggling with energy prices, farming.
Yeah, winter approaching, of course. Farm workers are having to spend more money keeping their animals warm, often crops as well, and keeping all of those fed and ready for sale.
Let's go to Northern Ireland. Our reporter there, Dougie Beattie, has returned to a farm you visited a year ago there. And talk us through, Dougie, with the farmer, the lad who owns the farm. What's changed since?
Yes, good morning, Eamonn. Good morning, Isabel. Yes, it has been a year since I joined GB News, and this was one of the first things that I reported on, and it was the price of nitrogen, the price of fertilisers, the price of grain, etc. And Sammy Hanna is the farm owner, and this morning I did something that I haven't done in years. I was in the milking parlour milking a cow. So, Sammy, just tell us a little bit about what has changed in this year.
Inputs have increased dramatically. Yes, our outputs, our milk prices have risen, but the price of inputs has increased twofold, threefold in some cases. Diesel, heating oil, electric, all our major inputs has really increased drastically.
Well, we spoke about the price of fertiliser last year, and it was rising then to about £400 a tonne. What did it get to?
It peaked for straight nitro chalk. It was peaking at £1,000. It's back now to £740 a tonne. That is.
And what does that do for the yield of the grass?
It's, well, without fertiliser, yes, you can cut back, but without the true amounts of fertiliser that we need, you're only skimping back and cutting your production back, which you can't do with a dairy herd.
Well, a lot of people now are taking the straw and chopping it and putting it into the ground and so forth to try and get the nitrogen back. Is that effective?
It's effective to a degree, but probably more effective being used for bedding in cattle and their nutrients being put into it and spread as dung onto the ground rather than straight from the straw.
Now that brings us into a lot of European legislation in and around the spreading of dung and fertilisers. I mean, what can we be doing now to try and help that?
Well, we'll have to try and bank our grass. Come the 15th of this month, we're not allowed to sow chemical fertiliser after that. You see, a perfect morning like this morning, we can't farm by dates. You could get another 2 months good growing here. We had 2 months very poor growing, very dry. Weather everywhere was burnt up. The grass hasn't grew the way it should have, but if we had a good back end, we could end up with potentially 2 months of good growing, which you can't feed with fertiliser.
Where do you see the prices of this going, and has it settled in this year? I mean, have we already made the food for next year?
No, we haven't near enough food for the incoming season. We haven't anyway. It's always going to have a knock-on effect with people cutting back, not sowing as much fertiliser. They don't have as much silage prepared for the winter's feed.
Well, there you go, Eamonn. There you go, Isabel. Isabel, you said about standing at the back end of a cow. I don't know if they floated those pictures this morning. I was underneath the wrong end of a very effective grass-eating machine.
And we all know what that's like. Oh, we need to get those pictures, Dougie, next time we see you. Thanks very much indeed. Lovely to see you. Lots more content coming your way, not least that from Dougie this morning. At 9:30, we are expecting the NHS to release their latest performance figures. We're not expecting them to be great. These are for England. They'll include hospital waiting times and delays. And over the course of the pandemic, the stresses and strains experienced by NHS staff were well documented. And we can speak to an A&E doctor about all of this, Dr. Joshua Woolrich, who can tell us about life on the front line. So what are you expecting to see from those figures then around 9:30 this morning?
Hi, Isabel. Morning. I'm not expecting them to look necessarily great to the layperson, but it does make sense to me why waiting times would have continued to rise, unfortunately. We are struggling in the hospitals. We are struggling in the GP surgeries. And as a consequence, people are having to wait longer before they get treatment after their referrals. Would you see this as predominantly because of the knock-on from the pandemic? And how, is that being affected by the current crisis that we're seeing now in terms of energy? Oh, dear. Oh, we've lost Dr. Josh. I'm terribly sorry. We'll see if we can re-establish that link.
Well, I'll tell you what, just on the subject of doctors, I'm talking to a research scientist. Yesterday, I spotted this story in the newspapers, and she was at Imperial College in London, and her friend identified a breast screening, and they invented a breast
Yeah.
screening kit for cancer at home for women. And absolutely amazing. I thought, listen, there's so much doom and gloom. We've got to praise people, and she's coming in. We're going to be talking to her shortly.
Oh, that's fantastic. OK, well, that's really good. Look, I'm told we've magically reconnected to Dr. Joshua Woolrich. Hello again. You were just explaining the reasons for the current crisis, even though you're not particularly surprised by it.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not sure what happened there. The pandemic has definitely made quite a large impact because, of course, as we close down certain what was classed as non-essential treatment, those patients who are waiting for that treatment, things have just delayed. So we are seeing much more patients waiting for the same treatments than we were a couple of years ago. So that's definitely had a big impact. The thing is, though, we were seeing waiting times increase before the pandemic already, and a lot of that is down to the funding and the staffing within the NHS. It's been something that's been going on for about a decade. We've been chronically underfunded. Staffing issues have been a problem, and also were a big problem after Brexit because we lost a lot of our staff. The NHS has always relied on a very multicultural staff base, and unfortunately, Brexit has demolished some of that. And you can't run a service efficiently and properly unless you have the staff to run it. So those kind of things have been going on before the pandemic. The pandemic has just really highlighted that there was a big issue and essentially stopped us from being able to fill the cracks.
And just really briefly, a thumbs up or thumbs down, if you will, Therese Coffey, of course, our new health secretary. Do you think she's going to be the right, as you talk about staffing issues, is she going to be the one to be able to sort all of this mess out?
I mean, as someone who has very harmful views on abortion, LGBTQ rights, I don't have a huge amount of faith in her. She doesn't have any real qualifications for the job. Not that that's necessarily a new criticism of the health secretaries over the last decade. But no, I am very concerned, especially with some of the stuff in regards to hiding things around benefits and stuff that happened over the last few years. I would just like to say it is a bit vile for people to be attacking her appearance. Her appearance has no bearing on her abilities to do the job. There are plenty of other concerning reasons as to why we're worried about what she's going to be doing.
Okay,
already yesterday, she came out with some nonsense. So, yeah, concerned.
Well, she has said she's not going to reverse any of the rules on abortion. She is a practising Catholic. But anyway, Dr. Joshua Woolrich, interesting to get your views this morning. Thank you very much.
Right after the break, we've got football. We've got a managerial merry-go-round. We're going to be talking Chelsea. We're going to be talking what's going to happen at Brighton. Question marks even at Liverpool. All that and more after this.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to Thursday's forecast. We're looking at, again, another day of heavy showers across the UK, some thunderstorms possible, but there will be some sunny spells too. And you may be used to a chart like this now, low pressure dominating the weather scene for the UK. Sat right across the UK, meaning outbreaks of heavy rain and showers for many, particularly the nearer to the centre of the low you are. And you can see those showers swirling around first thing Thursday morning across parts of Wales, the West Country, but pushing north and eastwards as we head through the morning. Some heavy downpours also first thing across Scotland, where Met warning is in force here for a time. Then into the afternoon, we'll see a mixture of sunny spells and showers for many of us. Showers heavy, thundery in places, some hail, disruption to travel. Temperatures generally reaching the low 20s, still warm in the southeast for the time of year, 23 or 24 as a high. Through Thursday evening, those showers continue. We do have to watch an area of heavy rain moving in off the North Sea for southern parts of Scotland and northern England. This slowly pushes its way westwards as we head overnight. Elsewhere, we'll see a mixture of clear spells and showers, perhaps showers frequent along the south coast of England, where it will be quite breezy. Brisk wind across the northeast as well. But for everyone, temperatures generally 13 to 16 Celsius. So we have this cloud across parts of Scotland, outbreaks of rain pushing its way, swirling around across into northwestern parts of England and Wales. Elsewhere, a mixture of sunny spells and showers. Showers perhaps most frequent in the east on Friday, but still some rain in the west, but less intense than what we've seen over the last few days. Brisk winds around the coast, but inland temperatures still reaching the low 20s, perhaps feeling a little fresher than it has done throughout most of this week. And into the weekend, well, we should start to see those showers ease ahead of further rain, which is likely to arrive from the southwest as we head into Sunday. And temperatures still not too bad for early September, reaching the low 20s for many of us.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation.
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
On TV.
On radio and online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
It is amazing. We had another night of Champions League action last night, and repercussions from that. Repercussions, the managerial merry-go-round in the Premier League continues. Back pages today on the Sport. It's all gone to pot. Chelsea, Blues in talks with Brighton. As Tuchel ruthlessly sacked by the new owner there. Paul Coyte is with me now to talk about what is going on and as a consequence of results. And Paul, I don't know where to begin here. I feel sorry for Brighton.
Yep.
Not for Graham Potter, because he thinks, there's a great chance for him.
Yeah.
Chelsea, Tuchel is not a bad manager, but the back of the eye saying falling out with the players led to his exit.
It's always the way. If you lose the dressing room as a manager, you will be out. There's no question. Players, unfortunately, this is the way it seems to be, and it's been quite a while it's been like this. Players know that they can talk amongst themselves and say, look, if we don't like this guy, we can down tools. We can get rid of him in no time and get someone else in. And whether they do it consciously or they do it unconsciously, I don't know, but it does happen. And if they lose the dressing room...
It's a real thing.
Absolutely, and there's so few managers that I think actually command that dressing room, and you get the players that will actually go wield it, because if they lose them, they're gone.
But we look at the managerial greats. You could name any of the great managers, whether it's from Brian Clough, Bob Paisley, Jock Stein. We could go through anybody. Alex Ferguson. Yeah. In this day and age, if they managed in this day and age, player power would see them out the door, because these players don't like being told what to do.
Managers are dealing with millionaires now. Whereas before, we can mention all those names that you just talked about. They were dealing with men that played football, and they were earning good money compared to everybody else, but nothing like the players command now. And the players are so important to the club. And this, as far as assets, we're talking players that are worth 80 to 100 million pounds, some of them. So they know they have the power. And if they're not happy with the manager, I don't know whether this is the situation with Tuchel or not, but what's interesting is that it started off well. He wins the Champions League very early on. This is off the back of Frank Lampard. My theory is pretty similar to that, because he's come in, new manager bounce, they think this is great, we got rid of the old guy, now we start playing. I say the old guy, Frank Lampard. Yeah. But then they win the Champions League, and then it's after that. So it's that success early, how are you going to deal with it after that? And it started off really badly, and it's continued badly, you can tell by the body language. It's just never going to work out.
I feel badly for Brighton
So do
in
I.
all of this. You look at the league, where are they sitting? Third?
Fourth, yeah.
Fourth,
in
right.
the Premier League.
Unbelievable, batting above their weight and whatever it is. It's a dream come true. Graham Potter, superb coach. What's going to happen now? Potter, I will predict, you will predict, will go to Chelsea.
Yep.
And he'll bring his whole backroom team with him.
He will. Potter, I don't blame Graham Potter at all. I think Potter is an honourable man. He's had chances to move before. He's doing really well at Brighton. Now, what do you do in that situation? You think, you know, I've come from Sweden and I've moved to Brighton and then I've turned them around, get them playing really good football after Chris Hughton and moving up the table. But there's going to be a ceiling at Brighton. There's only so far that they're truly going to go. And then when a big job comes along, you know, you're a football manager. You're not going to turn down Chelsea. There's going to be big money. But obviously, there's the jeopardy that if it ain't going to work soon, then you're going to be out like everybody else. But you have to go for it.
Yeah,
you have to take that chance.
Right.
I feel really sorry for Brighton, but I don't blame Graham Potter at all.
Yeah, it's just like, where do Brighton turn to now, or who do Brighton turn to now?
Where do they go? I mean, what happened? The merry-go-round...
Sam Allardyce available.
Sam would be great. There you go. But the thing is, that's it. The merry-go-round continues. We've got Brendan Rodgers at Leicester. How long is he going to last? We look at Steven Gerrard at Aston Villa. Is he going to be the next one?
Listen, even more ridiculous, Jurgen Klopp, after Liverpool's defeat in the Champions League last night. Yes, it was a big defeat, but you can't seriously then turn around and say, you know, Jurgen Klopp is a bad manager.
No, of course not. But something isn't right at Liverpool. The defence was awful. You look at Virgil van Dijk, that was absolutely...
The best central defender by far for
Getting
years.
turned inside out. Klopp is saying... He was actually asked, are you worried about your job? And he's saying no. And he actually made a point about this yesterday by saying, the owners of the club, they understand football. They know that time is needed. And I think it's a little look over to Chelsea to say, you can't fire people that early. Jurgen's going to be fine. And I think Liverpool will be OK, but there is a wobble. Well, whether it's a blip that's going to turn into a wobble, that's going to turn into a disaster, only time's going to tell. But I tell you, there was one story that I really like, and this is from the Liverpool game, and this is Napoli. So they beat Liverpool 4-1. And this is Giovanni Simeone. Now, he is the son of Diego Simeone.
Yes.
And I don't know whether you saw this, but he had a tattoo, a Champions League tattoo, done and when he was 13 years old. Can you imagine letting your son have a tattoo at 13?
Well, it depends what the tattoo is.
It's of the Champions. Do you think so?
No. But I mean,
13.
Don't tell me. I mean, you know, if I had a child and they had a tattoo of Spurs, whatever, on it, then I'd disown them.
Yeah, of course you would. It's understandable. Yeah. But I would be quite happily take them in. But he's got this tattoo of the Champions League logo because it's always been his ambition to play in the Champions League, although his father Argentinian and international. So anyway, scores his first goal. He's 27, scores against Liverpool, first goal that he scores in the Champions League, and he kisses the tattoo that he's had since he was 13. I'm just more amazed that someone would let their kid get a tattoo at 13.
At 13,
yeah.
You were at, I don't know what you call it now, it used to be White Hart Lane.
The Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
The Tottenham Hotspur Stadium,
Yes,
very official.
Yeah.
What was the atmosphere like last night?
The
You got a win
atmosphere
against Marseille.
was fantastic. I mean, it was amazing. From the music, and everybody was asked to dress in white because Spurs historically wear all white for European ties.
Special night.
Way back to the Bill Nicholson days. Yeah, it was great. I mean, Spurs, you know, was it a great Champions League performance? No. Did they get the job done? Yes. More importantly. So 2-0 Richarlison with a couple of great goals. So it's OK. You know, Spurs are winning, but the thing is they're winning games, whereas normally they would lose. They're not playing as well as they could do, but they're doing the job, so that's OK.
Football, funny old game.
It is a funny old game.
OK, thanks very much indeed. And if you're Thomas Tuchel, you're laughing all the way to the bank, 15 million quid payoff.
I just hope he didn't get the Chelsea tattoo. But,
OK, that's true.
I kissed my GB News tattoo, by the way, as soon as I finish.
Well, I'll kiss you goodbye. Thank you very much indeed, Paul Coyte there. We're going through the front pages. We're going through everything else in the newspapers. That's the back pages sorted out there. And you've got Liz Kershaw and Norman Baker doing that right after this.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation.
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV.
On radio.
And online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Stein Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Stein Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
So there was a story in the papers today about accents, and the Irish accent comes out on top as being the most palatable accent.
Southern Irish. Yeah, Northern Irish comes in second.
Yeah.
But actually, we have to qualify it, because I do think some Northern Irish accents can, not yours, some can sound a tad harsh. Don't know what you think about that.
Well, I was bringing in Liz Kershaw, who I never even noticed she had an accent.
Really?
Yeah. So what's your views on accents and how we're perceived because of our accent?
Do you think you've been judged based on
Oh,
your
yeah.
accent? Yeah.
When I first started on Radio 1, the Sun did a big splash. What's this woman doing on national radio? She needs subtitles. It was really hurtful. I'd moved from Leeds and I had no idea there'd be such prejudice, but I overcame it, and now it's positively de rigueur to have some regional accents, and if you're too posh, you won't get a job.
Well, the other thing is, Liz, how can you have subtitles on the radio anyway?
I know, but it was tabloid trash. But I do think that the Dublin comes top, and I do think that lovely Dublin brogue is very...
seduces you.
Yeah,
Inverness is better.
Lovely accent. Everyone here has a beautiful regional accent. I'm the only boring one, although Sean Mukherjee's got in touch. He said, Isabel, your accent is pleasant. I'll take that.
I think I agree with number 5, is it? And you and I were having a chat. We like posh boys.
I do love a posh accent.
A Hugh Grant.
Or a Hugh Grant. Yeah, they're just so polite sounding.
It's not that. It's sort of an inborn confidence and arrogance that comes. I love a bloke when he goes, "Hey, Kershaw." I was like, yes.
If you close your eyes when Ian Duncan Smith's speaking, it could actually be James Bond.
Yeah, but when you open it, I like
That's
it when
a stretch.
I like
which,
it when you.
Which James Bond? You know which James Bond is
I
that?
don't know, just a posh one. The way it was written by Fleming, a proper.
I like it, Emma, when you got Elizabeth. I like that.
Elizabeth.
Yeah.
But you see, Isabel, who would claim she hasn't really got an accent, she descends into this estuary. Right, out and about now.
No.
Out and about.
Say
No.
about.
What, say out and about.
Out and about.
About. Say we're going to do this now.
We're going to do this now.
Now.
Well, how should I say it?
Nor.
Hi, now, Brian Carr.
Anyway, how should we... we go to the papers. We're going to Miami, Mar-a-Lago, which is Donald Trump's residence. So that's you, Norman.
It is, and this is an extraordinary situation where you've got the President of the United States, as was, who's taken a whole lot of confidential documents to his private house in Florida, and these are about nuclear assessments of nuclear capability of other countries. They're about human intelligence. they presumably have information, according to the papers, about active US agents who are abroad. This is completely irresponsible. I just don't think, who on earth in the world, anywhere, in any other country would behave in that way?
I suppose where it becomes a sort of a problem for Republicans and even Trump fans is that this is actually not doing him any good in terms of popularity.
Well, not should it?
Sleepy Joe, as many people describe him, getting higher in the ratings as they head into their midterms off the back of this whole scandal.
But the first rule of any government is to protect its population. That's the first thing, the defence of the country and all that. I was in the Home Office, as a minister there. I know the steps we took to make sure that confidential information was looked after properly.
But let me ask you a question. Why would you care to speculate as to why he would be doing this? Was he being conscientious, working from home?
Do you think he's actually read any of these documents?
Yeah. Why? Why would he have them?
I just think it's, I don't know, hubris or something. I think he just wanted to say, I was present, I had this information, I'm keeping it. It's just as simple as that.
They do say information is power, don't they?
Yes, I mean, he wanted to give himself the image that he was all-powerful, he had this documentation. I don't know, I mean, the man's quite difficult to read, but, I mean, the thing is completely irresponsible either way.
He did boast, apparently, quite regularly about having this dossier which was found on Macron's sex life.
Yeah.
And speculations
boggles
what was in that.
Well, especially one on his sex life, for that matter.
The Russian.
He was in Russia,
yeah. Well, the thing is, he obviously people would have known he was doing this. He was taking stuff home from the office or cleared out the thing at the end of the day. Just very, very strange. Very, very strange, or maybe not so strange. Elizabeth, let's talk about the National Trust. It's the Daily Telegraph. It's page 3. They're finding difficulty recruiting volunteers.
Well, it's no wonder, is it? Because I can't remember what the actual cause was, but volunteers were told before the pandemic, was it? You've got to wear a certain badge or you've got to conform in a certain way. And they were protesting against that. They didn't want to be told that. They said, we're here to talk about history, not to set some, society manipulating agenda. So the volunteer numbers are down and also membership numbers. There's been quite a revolt in the National Trust because members have been saying we're here to preserve buildings and our history and our culture, and we don't want to get involved in all this rewriting history on colonialism and imperialism. We all know that places like, even if we only know it from Jane Austen and Mr. Darcy, we all know that at Lyme Park, for instance, where the BBC TV series filmed Darcy coming out the lake in his wet trousers, that building and all those huge historic houses were built on the back of plantations in the southern states of America and the Caribbean on sugar and, slavery. What do? Demolish them? Anyway, a lot of people have stopped supporting the National Trust, whether it's being a guide
so
or whether it's being a member.
The National Trust is being accused of being too woke.
Yes, and they're now saying in the final paragraph of this report, in their annual report, they're saying, and we're now suffering unprecedented challenges because of climate change. Well, hello. Some of their buildings, think of Hampton Court, has been round, just pre-Tudor times. And in Tudor times, we had the worst droughts ever in the mid-1500s. We've had the mini ice age in the 1600s. We've had droughts and cold weather in the late part of the 1700s. We've continually had weather extremes, and these buildings have survived. So it just seems to me like a bit of a chancer thing to get more money or grants or donations, but I don't see it as being more challenging than throughout the hundreds of years these buildings have stood. But I mean, people do desert things that they see are becoming woke. They might be silent, but there is, they make it felt. Okay. For instance, just a quick example: Newsnight on the BBC has lost since 2008 has lost 2/3 of its audience. I was reading, and people were saying, "Well, don't watch it anymore. It's too biased. It's too woke." So, and the number of people that are tuning into GB News. People just quietly react to these things, like the National Trust, volunteers and members.
OK, folks, if you've given up membership of the National Trust, tell us why. Let us know. Get involved in the conversation. It's gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet at gbnews. So, Jesus Christ played cricket.
Yes, this is from the Daily Star, that august organ of truth.
Must be true.
It must be true. This is the paper that gave you Elvis on the moon, I think, if I recall, some time ago. The allegation, which is only that, headed the Lord's Player, so that's quite a nice pun by the sub-editor of the paper, said that it was a gospel from the 8th century, which said that he, that's Jesus, would take the boys down to the seashore and, carrying the playing ball and the club, he would go over the waves as though he was playing on a frozen surface, hitting the ball. And on the basis of that, either that's true, which I'm not sure it is, suggests that he invented cricket. Well, I have to say it's a bold story, but I suppose for the Star, better to be bold than to be stumped.
No, very good, very good. You like your cricket.
Liz, what about HRT being bought over the counter now? A lot of people basically giving up on trying to get their prescriptions and having to pay for it themselves.
Well, with the new Prime Minister and the new Deputy Prime Minister, who's also going to be the Health Secretary, Theresa Coffey, you know, at my kind of girl, cigar in one hand, glass of scotch or whatever in the other. Awful criticism she's had for that, her appearance this week, sexist. Anyway, she said she's going to cut ambulance waiting times, make more GP appointments available, sort people out with a dentist, basic things for the NHS. Meanwhile, basically the NHS is saying, OK, well, you can't get to see a physician and therefore get a prescription. So just pop into your local private chemist. All pharmacies are private, so this is NHS privatised again, subtly, and you can just get your HRT over the counter. Oh, well, it's, you know, it is a very physiologically changing drug. So is that OK? Oh, well, you'll just have a consultation with a pharmacist. So we're loading it onto pharmacists now, and I don't think
everything's
that's right.
loaded onto pharmacists.
Yeah,
everything.
Yeah. So I wouldn't want to take a drug if I hadn't been prescribed it by a proper doctor. I don't think. I'm not talking about aspirin or.
Here's a health story that I think I'd like you both to discuss when you come back next time, because any of you who get diet drinks, diet food. Artificial sweeteners are linked to an increased risk of heart disease and should not be considered a healthy and safe alternative to sugar. So we want to talk about that research, because I think this great con, if that is true, the great con that we're all being healthier for you, but they're poisoning us, they're killing us. We're talking about those and sweeteners you may put in your tea or coffee and things as well, and spread over your cereal. But that's a concerning one. Guys, I'll be back in 40 minutes' time.
With the time coming up to 10 to 8, let's bring you up to date on the latest headlines today. And health leaders are warning that the NHS will face extreme pressure in the weeks to come without government intervention. In a new letter to the Prime Minister, experts called for urgent action to address the considerable pressure felt by frontline services.
The Queen's postponed a Privy Council meeting after being advised to rest by royal doctors. This is an important one because this was supposed to be Liz Truss being sworn in. Buckingham Palace said the meeting, which was being held virtually, will be rearranged for a later date.
As we were just discussing, artificial sweeteners used as a sugar replacement in a wide range of food and drink have been linked to an increased risk of heart disease. Researchers in France say food additives should not be considered a healthy and safe alternative to sugar.
This is an amazing story. I was telling you about this half an hour ago. So there was I going through the newspapers yesterday, and buried away was this story that I thought this should be big news, this should be headline news, and we should be, everything's doom and gloom and whatever. Cancer is such a hideous, awful disease, and yet a home testing device designed to help women monitor breast cancer has won a big innovation award. And joining us to tell us about their invention, the designers of this device, Deborah Babalola.
Yes.
Good to see you, Deborah. And Shefali Bohra. Very nice to see you as well.
Good to see you.
Can I just say it's an honour? It's an absolute honour because we just sat yesterday, saw this story in the paper and thought, wow, Deborah, this is important. Tell us how important this is.
Yeah, it's crucial. I mean, the statistics around breast cancer are staggering. I think it was in 2020, it was the leading cause of cancer incidence worldwide. In the UK alone, I think about 11,500 women die of it each year. That's 31 women every single day. So it's a massive cancer, and it has huge impact. So
what have you invented?
So we've come up with a tool that will help women to keep an eye on their breast health each month. It's just a handheld device that links to an app that basically guides you through the self-check process, because right now there's just so many different methods and a piece of guidance for these self-checks, and we're just trying to make them as clear as possible to avoid any confusion that women experience and just make it clear.
Well, Shefali, I can see some contraptions on the desk in front of you here and your phone open as well on the app. And we should say this amazing, prestigious award, it's the UK James Dyson Innovation Award. So, you know, not only just an internationally recognised, but a great British entrepreneur as well. Tell us a little bit about what we're looking at.
So it's basically a device, as Deborah mentioned, to monitor breast health at home. And what we do is we empower women to conduct these breast self-checks at home, and we do so by having a device where you put in your general menstrual data and then basically figure out how your torso is onto the screen by doing a calibration, which is using this thing to run it down from here to here, and then again from collarbone to nipple and then nipple to nipple. And post the calibration, you get onto a system where you're supposed to do your first breast self-check, which...
Shefali, when would this be commercially available?
I think it's further down the line. It's a couple of years down the line because, right now we are in the product development stage. We know the technology is feasible, but we need to get all the medical clearances.
And am I right in listening to what you're saying there? Are you really talking about this supplements or is an addition to or is a precursor to a full scan? This is like a mini scan, is it?
Mini mammogram.
It's basically not a mammogram. Okay. It's not a substitute for any of the healthcare services. Okay. It's to make sure that the checks that you do at home, which include you conducting them with your fingers, are now done by these. So that you don't have any confusion when you go or whenever you want to go to the GP.
Deborah, I mean, you both strike me as being quite young. I think, what sort of age were you when you came up with this idea, and how hard is it, you know, to turn an idea into something tangible like this and to get the recognition of somebody like James Dyson?
I mean, yeah, we were both in our 20s when and we still are while we were developing this. It's been a really exciting process, and I'd say because of the support that we've received from our universities and the mentors that we have, it's been really just an enjoyable process getting it developed. So yeah, we've had lots of input, lots of guidance, lots of advice from like medical advisors. So that's helped to just drive it forward and help with our development process.
Right, so just talk us through, Shefali, what we're watching there. This is the motion that people should take, as you were describing, with the contraption in their hand. So down from collarbone to nipple and then across nipple to nipple. And then this is the app that people would be looking at and accessing. Yeah. And just tell us what they should be looking for. That's the action again that you'll see with the contraption you've got there.
Yeah, so that's basically allowing you to build a map of your torso, and then post that is where you do the feedback system.
Okay, fantastic. And so, as you say, a few years now until this will be potentially available for women, but you believe it has the potential to be a bit of a game changer as it's such a huge problem, breast cancer.
Yeah, the agenda is to make sure that all the cancers that are detected at stage 3 and 4 are now caught at stage 1 and 2, so that because the survival rate increases up to 93% if caught at stage 1 and 2.
What I find, I find everyone suffers from breast cancer, men, women. If someone in your family has it, we all have mothers, we all have sisters, we all have daughters, whatever as well. And it affects all of us, this hideous, awful, ghastly disease, and anything that can be brought about to fight it is tremendous. But I would say Deborah and Shefali, they're in their early 20s. And, you know, I would just say to kids out there, when you watch all these X Factors and Britain's Got Talent, this is where Britain's got talent. This is real talent. And this is what we should be really praising and encouraging throughout the country.
These are People's Champions, GB News People's Champions.
We will. Do you know what we're going to do? It's not much. It's not a James Dyson Award, but we can give you a GB News mug this morning for that. You can do that. It's absolutely a delight and an honour to meet you two, and good luck to you.
Yes, look out for the dot plot, because it's coming to a shelf near you, hopefully, at some point in the future in a dot plot, maybe the thing that saves your life. Shafali, thank you to you as well, and to you, Deb.
And we also want to know, I mean, if you know of other research going on and other people inventing things that need a shout out, and as Isabel said, the People's Champion section that we do have on this programme, that's what it's about.
British
it's got
innovation.
Finding out ordinary people who are not being lauded, who are not being praised, who are not being talked about on the mainstream news agenda, and we will herald them here. Guys, thanks very much indeed. We're going to take the break. All we need is you after it. See you then.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to Thursday's forecast. We're looking at, again, another day of heavy showers across the UK, some thunderstorms possible, but there will be some sunny spells too. And you may be used to a chart like this now, low pressure dominating the weather scene for the UK. Sat right across the UK, meaning outbreaks of heavy rain and showers for many, particularly the nearer to the centre of the low you are. And you can see those showers swirling around first thing Thursday morning across parts of Wales, the West Country, but pushing north and eastwards as we head through the morning. Some heavy downpours also first thing across Scotland, where a Met Office warning is in force here for a time. Then into the afternoon, we'll see a mixture of sunny spells and showers for many of us. Showers heavy, thundery in places, some hail, disruption to travel. Temperatures generally reaching the low 20s, still warm in the southeast for the time of year, 23 or 24 as a high. Through Thursday evening, those showers continue. We do have to watch an area of heavy rain moving in off the North Sea for southern parts of Scotland and northern England. This slowly pushes its way westwards as we head overnight. Elsewhere, we'll see a mixture of clear spells and showers, perhaps showers frequent along the south coast of England, where it will be quite breezy. Brisk wind across the northeast as well. But for everyone, temperatures generally 13 to 16 Celsius. So we have this cloud across parts of Scotland, outbreaks of rain pushing its way, swirling around across into northwestern parts of England and Wales. Elsewhere, a mixture of sunny spells and showers. Showers perhaps most frequent in the east on Friday, but still some rain in the west, but less intense than what we've seen over the last few days. Brisk winds around the coast, but inland temperatures still reaching the low 20s, perhaps feeling a little fresher than it has done throughout most of this week. And into the weekend, well, we should start to see those showers ease ahead of further rain, which is likely to arrive from the southwest as we head into Sunday. And temperatures still not too bad for early September, reaching the low 20s for many of us.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation.
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England,
Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV.
on radio,
And online.
we're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Today, the Prime Minister will be setting out her long-awaited plan to tackle the energy crisis.
Good morning, it's just after 8 o'clock. It's Thursday, September the 8th. You're watching and listening to Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
Thank you very much for your company. Leading the news this morning, this is what we've got.
Millions of households will see their energy bills capped at around £2,500 a year under a much-anticipated energy support scheme being unveiled by Liz Truss this morning.
Now, it comes after she faced her first PMQs yesterday, where she was accused by Labour of not having a plan to pay for her policies.
Meanwhile, the pound has plummeted to its weakest levels against the dollar since 1985. The Bank of England now says a recession is unavoidable this year due to the war in Ukraine.
And Prince George, Prince Louis, Princess Charlotte have all started school today. They become pupils at Lambrook in Berkshire.
And we want to hear from you this morning. As always, get in touch on email or via Twitter, whichever way you prefer. We'd love to hear what you think.
OK, leading the news this morning, top story is the Prime Minister will today lay out her plan to tackle the country's energy crisis.
Well, as part of the scheme, millions of households will see their energy bills capped at around £2,500 a year, with the freeze expected to be paid for by borrowing.
Will that be sustainable? Our economics and business editor, Liam Halligan, breaks down what Liz Truss could announce.
Prime Minister Liz Truss knows that she needs to tackle the UK's energy crisis as her very first priority. Household fuel bills are soaring, given that rising Ofgem energy price cap. And UK businesses benefit from no price cap protection whatsoever, so they're facing even sharper price spikes. Last autumn, the Ofgem energy regulator capped their energy bills for a typical family at £1,277. That cap rose sharply to almost £2,000 in April this year as wholesale gas prices soared, with gas used to generate electricity, of course. And we've recently learned that from October, household bills are set to rise above £3,500 a year, almost a threefold rise in less than 12 months. As well as households, the new government needs to consider the impact of this energy price crisis on firms. Across Britain, all kinds of companies, from pubs, shops and restaurants to steel makers and manufacturers, they're seeing their energy bills spiral, even more than households. That's because that Ofgem energy price cap doesn't apply to firms, tens of thousands of which across the country are now at risk of bankruptcy. So what is this new government energy support package going to look like? Now, Rishi Sunak, when he was Chancellor, he announced a £400 grant to help all households. On top of that, more vulnerable families, those on certain benefits, they're due to receive an additional £650 a year. But these policies were set when wholesale prices were much lower, so it now looks like we need even bolder measures. Truss and her team are now expected to freeze energy prices for 2 years at April 2022 levels, scrapping that recently announced October Ofgem price cap altogether. And that's likely to cost the government around £100 billion. That's more than furlough. At a stroke, it doubles government borrowing this year. The reality is that this huge bill could soar even more. As the war in Ukraine drags on, those wholesale energy prices, they remain high and extremely volatile, not least with Russia restricting supplies of gas to Western Europe. One reason this energy support package is so expensive is that ministers have now indicated there will be assistance announced for businesses as well as households. To me, that makes total sense, because if countless businesses fold, we could have a jobs crisis too. But the cost that Liz Truss is going to announce is going to be sky high, and there's concern financial markets could rebel as the government tries to borrow much more. So this energy package is risky. Can the UK afford to do it? Or can we afford not to?
Well, that's the question being posed by Liam Halligan. And let's put it directly to our political correspondent, Tom Harwood. I mean, it's an impossible choice, really. You let the public go to rack and ruin, or you spend a huge amount of money. We can't overstate what a big sum this is. It's bigger than furlough, and it's per year. It's every year. It's not a one-off.
Absolutely. This is a rolling programme. That's one of the reasons why Team Truss seem to be leaning towards doing this on basically the country's books on borrowing, if you will, for the short term, because we frankly don't know what the international price of energy is going to be for the next year, for the next 2 years. When's it going to come down? Might it go even higher? So many people are, to some extent, describing this as a blank cheque. Because that's the situation we're facing. However, people who you would assume to be ideological allies of Liz Truss have been criticising these proposals, have been saying this breaks the price signal, something very important in terms of trying to boost supply and in terms of trying to reduce demand as well. So it's expected that today we will hear more about the supply side of the equation from Liz Truss, as much as we'll hear about keeping the prices down for consumers.
So by that, we're expecting to hear things like the green light for fracking, more drilling in the North Sea, etc., etc.
Absolutely. It looks like that moratorium on fracking, on shale gas extraction, will be lifted. It also looks like the green light will be given to new sites in the North Sea. But also when it comes to nuclear power, there could be some very interesting proposals. We know that the United Kingdom government wants to build, on average, 1 reactor a year. Not every year from now, of course, it takes time, but averaging out over a decade, there'll be, well, by the end of the decade, 8 more. That was the parting promise of Boris Johnson. At Prime Minister's questions yesterday, Liz Truss started talking about Scotland quite a bit when it came to nuclear power. Now, the Scottish Nationalist Party bans new nuclear power north of the border. That's currently SNP policy. It seems that Liz Truss may be wanting to make a political play against the SNP today, almost challenging the Scottish government to approve new nuclear power stations in Scotland. That might be an interesting part of what she has to say.
See, Tom, this is the whole confusion. You know, I remember that nuclear power was regarded as so awful, so taboo, so toxic. Then it's regarded as environmentally friendly. Does this leave the Scottish government out of kilter, out of line? I mean, we just need to be told the truth. Is it green or is it toxic and poisonous the way the Scottish government believes that it is?
Well, there's a tricky point here because there is still a stigma attached to nuclear power amongst many people in the country. It's not the most popular form of energy, but there is an overwhelming scientific consensus that it is one of the safest and greenest and most powerful forms of energy. It takes up, the amount of land that a nuclear power station takes up is minuscule, and one nuclear power station can power 7% of the country's electricity needs. Whereas if you want to do the same with wind farms or solar panels or anything else, the amount of land use and material use is extraordinary.
Well, it is a great debate and it's opened it up. We've got Dawn Baker. Dawn is in Buckinghamshire. Dawn is a GB News viewer and listener, and we really appreciate you, Dawn, being on board with us. Dawn, where do you stand on that?
Before we go any further, it's his birthday.
No, so I was saving that for the end, but there you are, OK. But the reason Isabel said that, Dawn, is that she has been practising to sing to you from her happy birthday. So, Isabel to Dawn, here we go.
No, happy birthday. 81 years young, no less, as well. You don't look a day... Well,
don't ask me how it happened. I just blinked and it happened.
Yeah, that's what happens, isn't it? Aging.
Are you feeling good, though?
Yeah, I'm okay, thanks. Yeah, I'm all right.
You're looking well, and happy birthday to you. I'll get Isabel on the camera phone here to do a private rendition.
Don't want to break your phone.
Of happy birthday.
Look, anyway, we know you're a Conservative Party member, and I don't know if you voted for Liz or not, but are you feeling happy this morning? She's 2 days in the job, big announcement today. How are you feeling about it all?
Yeah, well, I've been a voter for, 60 plus years. I only joined the Conservative Party recently, really to get Boris in and to get Brexit done. I have to say that was my objective, but I'm very happy with Liz Truss, and I hope that she's going to prove to be the right person.
Let's ask a few questions. Tom Harwood was talking about the big energy security and the energy crisis, and worries everybody, and one of the solutions in the long term is nuclear power. You've been around the block for enough years to know when nuclear was regarded as dangerous, toxic, whatever. What's your view on nuclear power and energy security?
Well, I think probably all energy forms have got some sort of downside, and until we get to this really total environmentally friendly approach, but even that may have downsides. My view has been that for decades, one government after the other have shilly-shallied on this, and have not had a proper energy policy for this country. And I believe we should have been into nuclear 40 years ago, 30 years ago. And by doing that, I think it would have provided us with the breathing space while we developed the new wind farms and other methods of producing power.
We are where we are, and
Yes.
obviously that's not happened. But how concerned are you? And I guess at the age of 81, perhaps not as concerned as some younger people about the fact that we'll be borrowing more to pay for all of this.
The other thing is you're an accountant. You're an accountant by trade. Do those figures add up in your mind?
Yes. Well, I'm what's called a management accountant, and I believe Liz Truss got the same qualification. I've not heard it mentioned, but I believe she has. Well, I think that the problem is, I think she has to face now supporting the families, and I think giving support to the worst off in our society is the number one priority, whatever that means. I mean, personally, I've had a good working life. I've worked for over 50 years, and I've managed to put some money away for a pension. So it's not the biggest problem to us, although where we live, we haven't got any gas, so we have to buy oil. So that's another little challenge. But I think
she addressed that yesterday. She said she was going to look after that. So I think she was made aware of that during Prime Minister's questions. Yeah. The idea, yes. So hopefully that'll be good. But the country's borrowing. I'm talking about this £150 billion borrowing.
A year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I think we have to face up to a few things. First of all, we've got a lot of history here. We've got the public sector pensions unfunded coming through from about 1948. At that time, Nye Bevan, who was involved in it, said of the National Insurance Fund, the secret is there ain't no fund. And that's come through, and I think I don't know how much we're in debt now on public pensions, but all this money for police, for health service and these public sectors, this money for these pensions comes out of today's taxation now. It's not coming out of funds like most of us would have.
Yeah.
We're also carrying a whole wad of PFIs, and one of my real things is that one of the things I'd like her to do, frankly, and I know you'll be against this, Eamonn, is to cancel HS2 and mothball it. Yeah. To me, it's the most pointless project. And not only...
But you see, Don, I see what you say, and needs must. I know we're looking at all this nonsense for it's you and me talking to each other here. But I'm just saying that I can see... And I would be in favour of HS2, but I can actually see there's a time and a place for everything, and maybe it is time to mothball vanity projects like that. I mean, I'm against living in a Victorian society, Victorian infrastructure, but there's so many. I mean, these are exceptional. This is a crisis. We're in exceptional times.
Yeah, but that's 100 billion to build that railway, and we're talking about 100 billion to perhaps solve the energy problem. I mean, which do we want? I mean, probably half that money is near on spent already.
Yeah, look, it's a shocking situation. Don Baker, really good to get your views. I want a final word, if I may, just from Tom Harwood and all of this, because, of course, we saw the markets really being quite scared by what they're expecting to be announced today by the Prime Minister, the British pound down to its lowest level since 85, I believe, against the US dollar. And that is going to be a problem. It is, what this is going to mean for recession, for the economy as a whole.
A word of caution on currency markets. Compared to the euro, the pound is actually staying about where it was. The dollar is a lot stronger now, mainly because the world is very, very worried, and the dollar is the reserve currency of the world now. So when it looks like there are bad global economic conditions, people tend to put their faith in the global reserve currency. So it might be more to do with the dollar and less to do with the pound there. But to some extent, there is the argument that there is going to be uncertainty before we hear the details of the plan. It will be very, very interesting to see how the markets respond after the plan has been announced and whether or not things shift as a result of it.
OK, Tom, thank you very much indeed. Goodbye to you. Tom will be with you from 9:30 with the briefing. Don, just wanted to say to you in Buckinghamshire, the reason I had to cut across you there is that we've got a Royal Mail strike today as well. Many, many happy returns to you, my friend. Thanks for taking the time and trouble, and it was good listening to your thoughts and your analysis.
Okay, all right. Nice to speak to you. Bye-bye.
Very nice to speak to you as well. So what I was referring to there is we're going to picket line now because workers at Royal Mail, new strikes being announced today. This is over a dispute over pay, 2% they've been offered. The Communications Workers Union said that all of the workers, and this strike has massive support. The thing about it is, will it be effective? Because people nowadays, they're not as reliant on letters and the postal service in general, or are they? Let's go to Paul Hawkins. He's in Camden this morning to tell us more. Paul.
Yeah, morning, Eamonn. Morning, Rosie. Yeah, so this is the second 48-hour strike lasting today and tomorrow. No letters will be delivered by the Royal Mail Group. Only those that are sent by special delivery, but with no guarantee of the next day. So that's the knock-on effect of these strikes, which, as you say, are happening because of that enormous rise in the cost of living, and the Communication Workers Union say that the pay offer from Royal Mail is insufficient. 2%, as you said, Eamonn, plus 3.5%, but that is based on changes to working agreements. Let's find out more about it from the General Secretary of the Communication Workers Union, Dave Ward, who joins us now. Dave, thanks for speaking to us on GB News. Really appreciate it. Do I have that correct? 2% basic pay and then 3.5% on top,
no,
but with the change to... OK, so you correct me.
I explained this to Eamonn the other week. There's not a 5.5% offer on basic pay on the table. It wouldn't be enough anyway if it was. It's money that is linked to bonus schemes that don't exist. We don't mind having a bonus scheme that's the same as the CEOs of the company who have managed to get over £1 million in the last few weeks in extra shares. They already had a massive bonus payout for hitting all of their financial targets, and now they're pleading poverty, so it's not on. But there are also other major issues in the dispute now. We're in a position where we've met the company. It has moved on. The company have actually said there's more money available. We've said that we're willing to talk about pay change. We're willing to put forward a process that could try and resolve this dispute as quickly as possible. And we're willing to make sure that whatever agreement we reach is in the interest not just of our members, but also customers and the future of Royal Mail. But the massive issue that's a real obstacle now is that at the same time as we're talking to Royal Mail, they are simply not being truthful about what's going on behind the scenes. So they're looking, in our view, to sell the company to a private equity offshore investment group. And the government have called in that company to do a national security investigation. This is making this a very difficult dispute to resolve. And we simply do not believe that the company, the CEO, the chair, the board, are telling the truth to either our members or the public.
I mean, Royal Mail's position is that the business is just not efficient enough, it's not profitable enough at the moment, that it is losing £1 million a day. Yes, it made £758 million profit last year, but that was a one-off because of the pandemic, because there was so much mail sent, testing kits, that kind of thing, and that the business is going to continue to lose money unless it gets its act in order.
The company faces challenges like all companies, yeah? But let's put that into context. They've got the best assets that they've had, they've got a tremendous asset base. The balance sheet is as good as it's ever been, and they're still paying out £400 million to shareholders and massive bonuses to CEOs. They gave all the managers in the company £1,000 each a couple of weeks ago. So they may say that, but why do you think a private equity investment group want to actually buy Royal Mail? It's not because it hasn't got a good future, it's because they want more money out of it.
OK, thank you very much for speaking to us, Dave. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Dave Ward there from the Communication Workers Union, lively down here at the picket line in Camden. And of course, the strike continues tomorrow. There will be a knock-on effect to mail services on Saturday. And then there is another strike that's been announced for September the 30th.
Thanks for explaining all that, Paul. Appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed.
Now, today marks an exciting new chapter for the Duke and Duchesses of Cambridge and their children, Prince George, Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis. They start at their new school after a taster day at Lambrook in Berkshire yesterday.
So what we're going to do is we're going to join our reporter, Ellie Costello, who's in Windsor. And Ellie's going to talk to us about first day. I'm sure it wasn't long ago since you did your first day.
A little while ago now, Eamonn, but yes, a very exciting new day and a new chapter for the Cambridge family. All 3 children are attending the same school. It's the first day of school today at Lambrook School near Ascot. It's only about a 10-minute journey from here, so very, very close in the car. But Prince George, Prince Louis and Princess Charlotte have all started at the same school. We've got this wonderful photo of the 3 children walking hand in hand with their parents into the school yesterday. They're looking very confident, very happy, and their parents are looking very proud as well, with all the children looking lovely in their school uniform. William, we did see yesterday, was ruffling little Louis's hair, obviously trying to reassure him it is his first day at school ever. He's only 4 years old. And that photo was taken from a settling in afternoon yesterday. The family went in and spent 90 minutes meeting the head teacher and familiarising themselves with the surroundings. And William was saying that the children were very excited to start school all together, and they had lots of questions about the school. It's obviously going to be a different school for Charlotte and George. They used to attend St Thomas's in Battersea. One big difference is going to be that George is going to be studying Latin, and he's also going to be attending school on a Saturday as well. But it's going to cost the family about £53,000 a year to send them here, but it's very much part of this move from the family from Kensington Palace to Windsor. We know that they moved to Adelaide Cottage in the Windsor estate over the summer holidays. We've seen Catherine driving around a lot over the last few weeks, looking very relaxed and happy, and they moved them to this school to be a family first approach. They wanted them out of the fishbowl of Kensington Palace. That's how they described it. They moved into a very normal looking family home on the Windsor estate, and we know that William is going to be doing the drop-off every day at school in Ascot. So it is reported that he has taken a leaf out of late Princess Diana's book. He wants to be hands-on, he wants to take the children to school, and he wants them very much to have as normal childhood as possible.
Yeah. Ellie, thank you very much indeed. Rafe Hadel-Mancu is with us to discuss about this. As Isabel's you're checking in.
My phone just
went off there. But we were talking about Isabel yesterday had to bring her children first day at school, her youngest starting primary school. And, so many parents are going through this and have gone through this, and they remember all these things. And there's no big fuss. And then you've got the, what are they called? The Sussexes, the very people. And they seem to make such a big fuss about their security and whatever. And I'm not saying that's unjustified, but the contrast in the pictures that we're seeing here and the relaxed, relatively normal family life that the Cambridges seem to live.
Yes, well, I mean, the whole purpose of moving the family away from central London to Lambrook and into Berkshire was to enable them to actually have a more normal life and not grow up in this goldfish bowl that is Kensington Palace. And the contrast, of course, with the Sussexes is quite stark in that attitude. One are sort of cosseting and hiding their children away, and the other family want them to actually engage and become normal, productive members of society. And that's part of the school's ethos, actually, is to encourage social consciousness, encourage engagement, leadership, intelligence and curiosity.
And this school just 10 minutes from the Windsor Castle, the Greater Estate, which has, of course, got the cottage they've moved into, Adelaide Cottage, and also Frogmore Cottage, which is where the Sussexes have been staying since Saturday, I believe, since they've been in the UK, doing various bits and bobs. Interesting that they haven't met. Lots has been made about the fact that the brothers haven't met up. But Eamonn Scobie now, who's sort of known as the mouthpiece, really, for the Duchess of Sussex, has come out and given his explanation for why the brothers haven't met. What's he been saying?
Yes, well, he says that Prince Harry is waiting for an apology from Prince William for perceived slights, alienating him, turning his back on him, and otherwise slandering him and his wife and making life difficult for them. I mean, one has to say that the alternate reality of life on planet Sussex is actually quite stunning and remarkable at times. I don't see what Prince William has to apologise for. He's not the one married to, a delusional drama queen who's intent on destroying the royal family in order to promote herself, and no matter who she damages in the process. He's not the one who's threatening to publish a tell-all memoir that's going to allegedly reveal allegations about the royal family and members and the institution itself. He's not the one taking his grandmother's government to court, and he's not the one who is snubbing invitations from his grandmother and from his father. You know, there's an old Bible quotation that says, "Hypocrite, you remove the plank from your own eye, and then you can remove the small speck from your brother's eye." And I think Prince Harry better go back to Sunday school.
Interesting. OK, well, look, since you mentioned the grandmother in all of this, worrying news from Balmoral. Doctors advising Her Majesty to take some extra rest and not get involved in the virtual Privy Council meeting today. What can we infer from that?
Well, it is discouraging after the very encouraging picture of a Queen looking in fine form when she met with Liz Truss at Balmoral recently. We had known that the Queen had pulled out, for example, of the Braemar Games, the Highland Games that she goes to every year. But there were other reports that she had been seen walking unaided without a walking stick with her corgis outdoors. So there were some signs of positivity there. We can't speculate too much. The doctor said she needs to take a rest. But what's interesting is this is, of course, is just a virtual meeting, and she didn't have to leave Balmoral for this meeting, and they still decided to cancel it.
So that makes it sound more serious.
It does sound more serious. Again, we shouldn't speculate, but Privy Council meetings happen every month. They've happened every month online now for a long time.
I believe this is particularly important because there was some sort of
this is endorsing,
swearing in.
This is the kissing of hands. Also, I should say, Privy Council meetings traditionally are held standing up. The Queen doesn't stand up any longer, but the idea was to keep them moving quickly. But Liz Truss was going to be sworn in as First Lord of the
She looks great there, so she does.
All of the ministers were going to be sworn in as well, so it's an important meeting. It has to take place, because these are the Queen's ministers, but it will be rescheduled.
Rafe, thank you very much indeed. Always good talking to you. Thank you. We're going to the farm. Next, we're going to be down in the farm to find out how dairy farmers are suffering during this cost of living crisis. I mean, we talk about us as consumers and what we have to pay for goods, but at the wholesale end, at the production end, what's happening in their lives? Talking about the farmers after this.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
On radio,
And online.
we're proud to be the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome back. It's exactly 8:30. Still to come on the programme this morning, we will be speaking to the psychic Uri Geller about why he's bought an island, and we'll find out about...
He's bought an island?
He has bought an island, as you do. And we'll be talking about a paranormal experience he had as well with none other than John Lennon. That is at 9:15.
9:15, we'll be speaking to the artist behind a sculpture, and it's gone wild all over social media. It's of Liz Truss, and apparently it's very funny.
Yeah, looking forward to that. And as ever, we'd love to hear from you. Lots of views coming in. I have a quick goosey gander at them. Mike in Marley's got in touch saying so much focus on a windfall tax. Everyone's lost sight of the fact that the government's already introduced a 25% additional tax on profits to
But Mike's right. Mike's right.
The problem is, however, that the producers are in the main outside the UK and outside British tax jurisdictions.
I think everybody's
Very good point,
forgotten the
Mike.
fact. We talk about windfall tax as if, oh, here's a good idea. But I'd like to know what's happened. What are we windfalling?
Yes, how much are we?
What are we taxing?
Chris says, go woke or go home. This was in relation to the National Trust. Sack the whole NHS board and senior management. Oh, OK. In relation to NHS there. Sorry, I'm just doing a little dip in to see what we've got. Alan says, use oligarchs' frozen assets to fund the energy cap. Now,
True.
there's an idea we can all get behind.
Except they've got lawyers. Anyway, another industry struggling with the energy situation, farming. Winter, of course, just around the corner. Farm workers are having to spend more money just keeping animals warm and fed.
Well, let's get all of the details on this from our Northern Ireland reporter, Doogie Beattie. He's returned to a farm he visited a year ago to find out what has changed. And just to explain to me, I mean, I wasn't aware that dairy farmers had to keep their cattle warm. Is that really? Don't they just keep warm by sort of being snuggled cheek by jowl
with lights on
in
and
a cattle
everything.
shed?
Feeding, milking machines, automatic feeders.
Yeah, well, that would generate some warmth. Tell us more, Doogie.
You see, Isabel, you think that it's all just throw them in a field and it'll do itself. No. These cows have manicures and everything, I'm told. Definitely this morning was a different day for me. I did something that I haven't done in many, many years. I was in a milking parlour, actually a parlour not unsimilar to that I would have milked in many, many years ago. But I returned to this farm here a year on. Liz Truss is going to make her statement on energy today, and with me is Sam Hanna. He owns this farm, and I really want to ask him, Sam, what do you expect out of Liz Truss? What would help you?
Anything at all that she can do to reduce the energy bills or the costs or the spiral in costs that are getting way out of control for everybody, not just the farming sector.
How does a farm differ from the likes of the big energy companies? What do you get by investing in a farm as a taxpayer?
You get fed. Basically, we are your bread and butter on your table. We're producing that for you to live in a sustainable society.
Well, we can see what's happening in Russia at the moment. It doesn't look good again this winter. Many talks about the nitrogen not making it back out again. And of course, nitrogen, one of the main ingredients of it is gas, and the prices that's going up. How is that hitting you at the moment?
Well, naturally, the fertiliser cost that's coming to us has spiralled 3, 4, 5 times dearer than what it was last year, the year before. And that going into our expenses and inputs is greater than what we can afford at the minute.
Well, there you have it. It's not a good picture being painted from farmers, and that will come out in our shopping baskets later this year.
I want to hear more about the manicure, cow manicure, but we haven't got time. You have to tell us another time.
Dougie, I'm heading home today, so is the weather all right?
The weather's fantastic, actually. I'm heading to the air show in Portrush. I'll be live from there on Sunday, so I'm hoping that the weather's very, very good.
Oh, here, that's an idea. I'm going to a car show in Dollingstown, so I am, on Saturday morning, so that could be Sunday taken care of as well.
No, you've got to come back, because the flights keep messing up. Come back early Sunday morning.
I know, I heard.
You heard? oh. Ear to the ground. Guys, thanks very much, and good luck with the farm there to all the Hannahs. I think I know who's related to as well, but anyway, thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Everybody knows everybody.
I know, everybody's business by all accounts as well. Look, we'll leave them to their little Northern Irish love in there. We're going to take a break. After that, we're going to have our newspaper love in. Norman Baker and Liz Kershaw back for that.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation.
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
On radio,
And online.
we're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
We delve into the papers again. We go through those this morning with the broadcaster Liz Kershaw, the former Home Office Minister Norman Baker. And Elizabeth, we begin with you, and it's the Daily Telegraph. They have a whole feature on cost of living as regards food and how to save money. Are you inspired or not?
Well, I said to the producer when he asked us what we wanted to do, I said, I want to do the one on teaching your granny to suck eggs in the Telegraph. So these are the top tips. They all make sense, but I thought it was common sense. So you should use a smaller pan with less water in when you're boiling things. You should choose smaller size pasta rather than big ones because it takes a shorter time to cook. Grill things rather than put the oven on and roast it.
What's it called? Air fryer.
Yeah, get yourself an air fryer. Don't cook them from frozen. Let it defrost first. Use a pressure cooker. My grandma always had a pressure cooker, but I was always worried that it was going to explode. Yeah, I can't go near those. Don't boil stuff. Leave it to steep. You used to do that with dried peas and stuff, and rice.
We used to get our dried peas on a Saturday night.
Yeah.
It used to be in the little bag, and you put a salt cap.
Yeah, bicarb of salt.
Sorry, I've never heard of dried peas. What?
And then
steeping peas.
Dried peas come out the freezer. What do you mean?
No, you steep them. You steep them.
No idea.
So they rehydrate the night before, and then they're for your Sunday dinner on Sunday.
Yeah, and don't wait.
Box of bachelor's peas.
Don't wait for the oven to preheat. Just stick your food in it straight away.
I've never had the patience for that.
So these are all things to save energy.
I want to know about grandmother sucking eggs. I mean, I don't know how to suck an egg or why we suck an egg.
No.
To decorate it.
There must be somebody tell us, why do we suck eggs? What is that phrase about? Because when you think about it, you wouldn't be sucking the yellow bit out, you'd be sucking the white bit, wouldn't you? So there must have been some, in days of old, some nutrient benefit or some reason why you would do that.
Yeah, I did tell my son off yesterday because he put 4 sausages on a tin plate and put the oven on. I said, no, you can fry them because, it's to save electricity.
As long as he didn't put them in the microwave on a tin plate. That was it.
On a tin plate,
We continue with costs. We go to the Mirror, and this is the cost if you want to get yourself an iPhone.
Well, this is. I'm in a parallel.
He's looking at your.
I'm going to show you that in a minute. I'm in a parallel universe here because we've got cost of living crisis, and here's a new iPhone, which iPhone 14 going to cost over $1,000, almost £1,000, and the Apple Watch Ultra will now set back consumers £694. And the new AirPods, wherever they are, I'm sorry I'm in a different universe here, the new AirPods will cost £216. And it says here, I don't understand this paragraph, perhaps someone can explain it to me. The new AirPods offer better sound clarity and users can scan their ears with their phone camera to personalise their sound experience. What does that mean?
Well, I suppose it means that it maps your ears and shows the configuration of your ear may be different than my ear, and it'll change the sound to be.
Well, Eamonn, you're ahead of the game.
ambient.
You're ahead of the game for me. I don't understand.
But you are right.
This is my phone. Here, look, I'm going to show you this to the viewers. This is my phone, which costs £5.99. It makes phone calls, it gets text.
Like, did you buy this in the modern age, or did you buy that in 1982?
No, this is my emergency phone actually, but it's perfectly adequate. Why would you spend £1,000?
That's a real phone.
It's a real phone. I can ring you on it, Eamonn. Yeah.
It makes calls and receives calls.
And it you can text on it. It's even got a camera on it.
We had two research scientists on today who had invented an app to scan for breast cancer, and again using mobile phones. So,
well, it's like Mr. Dixon. He just does that on his arm.
To read his blood sugar.
Check his blood.
Yeah, actually, the serious thing about mobile phones is that if you try and get hold of your doctor's surgery, they now seem to want you to put a mobile phone in order to be able to respond in certain cases.
Yeah.
And not everybody has a mobile phone.
You see, not everybody has teeth either.
No.
And the phrase teaching your granny to suck eggs, in days of old, my producer Charlie has just told me that when older people, like the older grannies, hadn't got teeth, they had to pin an egg and suck the yolk.
Oh, is that where it comes from?
Yeah, so teaching your so in days of old. I don't know how old it was, but that's basically what it was to get their nutrients.
Talking of getting your nutrients, it's costing an arm and a leg these days, Liz, and we were talking about this before we came on air this morning, but the Telegraph have covered this as well. The price of food, not just food, drinks as well, in coffee shops or in bars, astronomical as the cost of living crisis is hitting now.
Yeah, 3/4 of pubs and restaurants have already increased their prices because of the energy crisis. It's an industry survey of 150 companies in 7,500 venues found. In another article in another paper, one restaurateur was saying they can see that they will have to charge £100 for a steak just to cover costs. I couldn't believe it the other night when I went out for a meal for one of my son's birthdays, and it worked out at... I had about 6 prawns as a starter, and then I had a pizza, but I only ate half of it, took the other home in a box. I didn't have a pudding, and I had a coffee. And we split the bill, and split the bill equally between us all, and it was 65 quid each.
Yeah.
And last time I went there, I thought it was pricey. It was about 50 quid. But I just thought, there's come to a point where you think... Because I always sit there and think, I could make this at home.
No, but the point is, could you now make it at home? Because it's going to rise in the supermarket. But what I'm saying is, there's a difference between profiteering and what's happening now, which is the cost of their staff, the cost of their heating, the cost of
lighting,
their produce, everything's going up.
Twice, this whole eat out to help out. We all really wanted to support our local restaurants and coffee shops and bars, and now, I had the same experience this week. I went for breakfast one of the mornings after the show. I ordered a yoghurt, which in itself was £10 for a bowl
but
of
you
yogurt
never pay.
and some fruit. I did, and I paid for my guests.
You never paid with me.
Because,
What? So you actually felt the pain of the bill?
Yes, I did.
Maybe you'll say the next time I go on,
Went
poor
for
Eamonn.
breakfast for 2 people, it was 80 quid.
I'm going...
And you paid for it?
I paid for it.
Wow.
Things are changing.
I'm going to Mallorca tomorrow. I haven't been for 3 years because of the pandemic, and I'm very interested to see the price of eating out there.
It affects everybody. It affects everybody. It is awful. Norman, on the subject of eating, there is a study. This is in The Guardian today, and it says that sweeteners, as the sort that we would have in diet drinks and whatever, are linked or could be linked to the increased risk of heart disease.
Well, do you know, I've always taken a rather old-fashioned view that it's better to have food processed as little as possible and as natural as possible. So, for example, I'll always have butter rather than margarine. Butter's been around since the beginning of civilization. Margarine was invented in the Second World War. It was originally grey, by the way, when it was invented. You had to put colouring in it to make it... Well, yes, I know the person who was involved. A friend of mine's dad did it. It was originally grey. So I just think, stick to natural products that have been around for so long that you know the pros and cons of them. I'm not saying butter's always good for you, but you know what the advantages and disadvantages are. Yeah, the Mediterranean diet, of course, is very healthy. And you look at the Japanese who live for a very long time with a different diet. So why would you want to risk something which has been a chemical invented in some factory somewhere?
Just agree with you on so many things, Norman. Couldn't disagree with that.
But you see, Norman, explain to me the food lobby. Explain to me why governments don't act against this. The food lobby must be so powerful, and I don't care if it's biscuits we're eating, sweeties that we're eating, or we're giving our children, whatever. I now am very off the opinion, but I'm a lost cause, that food can either poison you or heal you. And the thing is, most of us don't know the choice. I know you're going to say, Isabel, well, you know a packet of biscuits is bad for you, but we don't know to what degree it's bad to you if you have 2 custard creams or 3 custard creams.
Well, you'd be better off with a good old-fashioned digestive.
I think you hit the nail on the head when you talk about the money being involved, because what happens is that there are big vested interests and they will influence government. In fact, there's a phrase for it called regulatory capture, when the people you're supposed to be controlling end up controlling you.
Yeah.
And this happens particularly in agriculture, it happens in the food industry. And that's why the sugar tax, for example, despite medical advice, was dropped, because there was a lot of lobbying from vested interests. And of course, vested interests to give money to political parties who then want to listen to what they say.
And America's to blame for all of this. America brings all this in, and the whole idea was fast food, that they would feed us with stuff that would be addictive to us, that we would want to come back and back and back again.
But conversely, the government, we've spoken about this before on the show, the government knows full well what's nutritious and what's not, which is why there's no VAT on meat or cabbage, for example, but there's VAT on biscuits, crisps, fizzy drink. In other words, everything that's not actually food. So.
And the other thing that annoys me is shrinkflation. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yes.
You get a bag of crisps now, Isabel, and things like there's various little variations on crisps that I buy.
There's like that many crisps in a packet that size.
Well, the packet is so small, my hand now can't even go into the packets. And they say, and then they do all this thing, made for sharing. Who shares? Who shares?
Have you seen the size of a Mars bar recently?
Oh,
it's full of the Milky Way.
Well, you know what, guys?
Absolutely
maybe this
right.
is good for us all.
Do you remember? I remember the point in the 60s when food changed.
Yes.
So my grandma and my mum would make everything like, you know, shepherd's pie.
That was regarded as old-fashioned by the likes of us.
They'd spend hours on Sunday baking, and then Tesco's opened near where my mum worked in Oldham, and she came home all excited. And from then on, it was Webster packet meals, you know, rehydrating your peas and everything. Never quite rehydrated. There was always a lump of powder in the middle. It was margarine, spread with margarine, Angel Delight.
Magic stuff.
All this
we used
crap.
to go to the supermarket, and then they opened till 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock on a Friday night. We used to go like as a family. It was like a night
exciting.
out to the supermarket.
Yeah. But it wasn't real food anymore.
No, it wasn't real food. You're absolutely right. In the 70s, which was magical because my mother would have made wholesome food.
Yeah.
And then with 5 boys, we would just go, what's this muck? Because we would want what was the rubbish. We would want the rubbish, which she would always say was too expensive. I used to always crave Sugar Puffs because they gave Star Trek memorabilia away with Sugar Puffs badges and things like that. But my mother always said, we never got it. My mother always said, it's too expensive. It's too expensive. You just have to have Weetabix instead. They never give anything away.
Weetabix are good.
They
for
never
you.
give away free gifts or anything.
Cover it in sugar,
like
though,
that.
don't you?
No.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure reliving all our
guys.
yesterdays with Norman and Liz this morning. Thank you very much indeed. Hope you enjoyed it. Write in, give them some support, or else they'll not be back again.
Now, very often on this programme, Eamonn and I listen to the news. It's so miserable and depressing, and we think, wouldn't it be nice to just disappear off to an island, a remote island, to escape
You're right.
all the misery?
I think that's what will happen to me. I'm going to go to an island.
Well, do you know what? I know a man.
Yeah, who has one?
Bought an island, and you can buy citizenship there. It's called Lamb Island. It's owned by Uri Geller, and I'm very pleased to say he joins us now.
Lamb Island, off the coast of Scotland. How do we get to live on Lamb Island, Uri?
Join you.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me onto your show. Look, you have to be a citizen first, and the most important is that it costs only $1, and all the money goes to a charity which is called Save a Child's Heart. They have already saved 6,000 children with open heart surgery from 64 countries. Half of them were Palestinians. Amazing. So it's a good cause. Now, you can't live, Eamonn and Isabel, you can't live on the island because it's a bird sanctuary. When I bought the island, I became automatically the owner of 150,000 seagulls and 50,000 puffins. So, but I do have an anthem. Listen, I do have an anthem. I do have a constitution. I do have a flag, which was placed on the island. And guess what? I also have a football team.
But you have a football team, but you've nowhere to play football, so if it's all full of birds.
That's true, but we'll play football on the mainland. But it's amazing. The football team is called Lambies. And yeah, I just can't believe it. It's all rolled out in the last, I would say, 5 weeks. Suddenly from an island, I have a country, and my vision is to really turn it into a bona fide country. So people will have passports, EU passports, and that will be, wow, amazing.
Wow, this is incredible. And this is you unfurling a flag actually on Lamb Island off the coast of Scotland. I believe Stephen Fry is one of your 2,000 citizens. And now not only do you want this, or have got a football team, because of the sort of, I think it's ley lines and this Egyptian treasure there, you believe that this is a particularly special location. Tell us more about that.
Okay. By the way, also, Peter, Andre is a citizen. I'm now after Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt. But let me tell you how this all happened. I was in Japan. I read the Times. I see an island for sale. I bought it. Then I get a phone call from Mohammed Al Fayed. If you all remember him, he was then the owner of Harrods. Sadly, his son died with Princess Diana in Paris. Mohammed tells me, Uri, you don't know this, but there is a book called the Scotti Chronicon, and it was written 500 years ago by an abbot, and in it, it says that Queen Scotta, 3,200 years ago, the Egyptian queen, sailed to North Europe, moored outside my island, and there was treasure buried by her Egyptian soldiers on the island. Another phenomenon is that opposite my island, which is opposite North Berwick, believe it or not, Robert Stevenson lived, who wrote Treasure Island. So probably my island was an inspiration to write the very famous book, Treasure Island. So it's enigmatic, it's mysterious, it has ley lines that go straight to Roslin Chapel, from there travel to Jerusalem, to the pyramids. Wow.
Gosh, you couldn't make it up, Uri, and I'm sure you don't. But tell me this. So you were having a sleep. Tell us about this sleep that you were having, and you were visited in the night by somebody very, very famous, but who, alas, is no longer with us.
Yeah, let me show you. So John Lennon and I were really good friends. He lived in the Dakota building in New York. I lived on 57th Street. One night, he calls me up. This is a whole tribute to him in my museum. He says to me, Uri, you got to come quickly. Something unbelievable happened to me. I said, John, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. No, you got to come. I felt from his voice that something really happened to him. I told him, let's meet halfway in a hotel. I walk into the hotel. He stands in the corner. This is John Lennon. He's white and shivering. And I said, John, what happened? He puts his left hand into his pocket and he pulls out this item and he gives it to me, and it's really heavy. And I said, John, what is this? This is what John tells me. Uri, I'm lying in my bed. Suddenly, a sphere of light appears next to my bed, and out of the sphere of light, an extraterrestrial hand stretches out, and I get this into the palm of my hand. Well, you can imagine my first question to him was, what did you smoke? Or what were you on? But he swore to me, this actually happened. This is why I placed an extraterrestrial picture here. This, by the way, is John Lennon's drawing. He drew this himself, a UFO, and he was a believer like me. I'm a total believer that we are not alone, and I've got proof from NASA. I was taken to meet Dr. Werner von Braun. He was a former Nazi scientist who actually put the Americans on the moon. He himself told me that UFOs have been visiting our planet, and actually one crashed, and he let me hold the piece of metal that was from the crash site. It's true, it's happening. Pentagon releases footage from cockpits of pilots, and you can hear them scream, oh my God, what is this? You can see UFOs zooming in speed that we have no such technology.
Gosh, what a story. That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, really. Wow. And I've got to ask you, you know...
This awful world that we're living in now, Uri.
Yeah, and-
the negative energy, the fact you bring so much positivity to people, and there seems to be one man causing a lot of the problems, Vladimir Putin. Have you ever met him? Have you ever tried to communicate with him?
Oh, you know, I was all over the, British press on the front page covers just a few months ago when I said that I'm going to beam, I believe in my powers, telepathy. Everybody has telepathy, extrasensory perception, and I'm going to make sure he doesn't pull the trigger because their hands were on nuclear bombs on the trigger. So I sent a warning letter to Putin, an open letter. You can Google it, you'll find it. And I actually got response. I cannot tell you what I got, but, the Russians are actually very superstitious. So they believe in the powers of the mind and they believe in all kinds of things. I personally think that after the response I got, they took my warning seriously.
That response coming, I mean, you say you sent an open letter, but I mean, was this an internal message or did you get something tangible from them?
Oh, tangible. I can't really speak about it, but look, the war is still going on in the Ukraine, but at least we don't have the threat of a nuclear attack. You know that a lot of people don't know this, but I was tested by the CIA. And the CIA actually, and I'm saying this for a reason, if you give me another minute, the CIA came to a conclusion after they tested me, and it's up there, it's on their website. As a result of Geller's success in this experimental period, we consider that he has demonstrated his paranormal perceptual ability in a convincing and unambiguous manner. So I was asked to bombard the Russian nuclear arms reduction negotiator in Geneva to sign the nuclear treaty. There I was, standing next to Vice President Al Gore, lots of important people, and I actually beamed into his brain, sign, and they signed. So I've done this type of nuclear negotiations in the past. I know what I'm talking about, and we do not want a nuclear bomb exploding anywhere.
Not, but, I mean, if that is the case, then, Yuri, keep those messages to Putin going, especially if you're getting responses.
I'm having a message beamed into my brain, Uri, I'm sorry, which is we've got to say goodbye and we've got to go to the break.
Wait, Eamonn, you can't take a break before I don't bend a spoon for you. So here we go. Watch my arm. 1, 2, 3. Watch it bend. Bye.
Bye-bye, wonderful
Very
stuff.
good, Uri. Thank you. Very good.
That's actually quite spooky because I just blew kisses to him as he blew kisses to me. That's telepathy.
Well,
Yuri, thank you.
Thanks for cheering us up this morning, Uri. Very, very good.
We've got to take a break, though. We really do. We'll be back in just a moment.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
On radio and online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
The Prime Minister sets out her long-awaited plan to tackle the energy crisis today.
That's what's leading our news this morning. A very good morning to you, just after 9 o'clock on this Thursday, September the 8th, on television, on radio, online, on our app, around the world. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster. Good morning.
Here's what's leading the news this morning. Millions of households will see their energy bills capped at around £2,500 a year under a much-anticipated energy support scheme being unveiled by Liz Truss this morning.
It comes after she faced her first PMQs yesterday in the House of Commons. She was accused by Labour of not having a plan to pay for her economic policies.
The pound has plummeted to its weakest levels against the dollar since 1985. The Bank of England now says a recession is unavoidable this year due to the war in Ukraine.
And Prince George, Prince Louis and Princess Charlotte have all started school today. They've become pupils at Lambrook in Berkshire.
You can join in any of our discussions. Email us, tweet us, you know the usual ways. Get in touch with us.
No, or else you could be the unusual way, the Uri Geller way. You could just telepathically get in touch.
Send messages. So, a top story this hour, the Prime Minister will today lay out her plan to tackle the country's energy crisis.
Now, as part of that scheme, millions of households, you will see your energy bills capped. We believe the figure will be £2,500 a year. How's it going to be paid for? Through borrowing.
Well, joining us in the studio to discuss all of this is our political correspondent, Tom Harwood. Look, some people getting in touch this morning saying, capped at £2,500, that's still more than twice what I'd normally pay, and it's still going to be very, very difficult for a lot of ordinary people. That being said, it looks like it's going to be a bit of a saviour, this deal.
Well, to some extent, it will be difficult for a lot of people. Of course, bills are already fairly high, but we need to dive into what we expect that £2,500 figure to be, because there is, of course, that £400 payment that families will be receiving this October as well as part of the previous energy alleviation package. So that would bring it down to closer to £2,000, still more than, for example, people were paying last year, but not an increase on the last round of the energy price cap assessment. So staying in terms of what families have already been paying, really. That's what we're expecting to come from this announcement. But yes, still, energy costs are high. This isn't going to be easy for a lot of families. But on the other hand, there are economists who are saying that this is potentially not the best signal to send to the market in terms of just freezing a price. A price control breaks the price mechanism system, the system that normally tells that players in the market that they need to use less energy, or indeed encourages producers in the market to produce more energy. So if that signal has been broken by this policy, it's hard to see how this will bring about a market mechanism end to this crisis that the world is seeing, because there does need to be less energy used.
Right,
the EU
so in other
yesterday proposed energy rationing across Europe.
Because otherwise you risk blackouts, right? You have this price freeze, but consumption doesn't go down, and what's the net result? Potentially we could see the lights being switched off.
That's the real risk. So we are expecting to see a lot on the supply side of the equation today as well. But the question is, how quickly can supply come on stream? Not particularly quickly, according to any reputable analyst, not in time for this winter. So there will need to be a way in which people use less energy. And the price mechanism was one of those ways that encouraged people to save energy, to use less. that seems to be broken here. And one of the problems with a crude energy price cap is that, for example, millionaires who want to heat their swimming pools are going to get that same cap that struggling families on the lower end of the income scale.
But I believe the reason it was chosen, this more crude approach, is because, quite frankly, a means-tested approach is just much more fiddly, much more time-consuming, and this was so urgent it needed to be dealt with very quickly. But I think you're right, and it's something that I know you've talked about on your social media platform as well, is that this isn't just about what can the government do in this crisis. There has to be a shift in emphasis to what the consumer and the citizen can do. And I believe there's going to be a move towards a return of sort of public service broadcasting in terms of these public what am I trying to say? The little videos the government put out to encourage people, turn your lights off, turn off your TV at night, try and save energy yourself.
Almost voluntary measures to try and deal with this issue, and also public information in terms of what are the things that use the most energy, because sometimes it really isn't what you think it is. There have been reports recently of, for example, elderly people not using their stair lifts and only staying on one floor in the house. Well, it turns out that a stair lift really does not use much energy at all, whereas some things that you wouldn't expect to use a lot of energy really do. So greater public information is a good role for the government to deliver, rather than the more crude option of literally telling people they can or cannot do something. Unfortunately, that's what the EU proposed just yesterday, rationing in terms of what energy people may use. Now, that might not be taken up by the institutions, the other institutions of the EU or the individual countries, but that's what the Commission said yesterday. It really is very, very difficult for every country that is experiencing these incredible price hikes.
Here in the UK, though, what the Prime Minister is proposing is expected to cost north of 100 billion a year. Now, that is more than we spent on furlough, and as we said, that is annual. That is until this package ends. Can we afford it?
That is the big question. It's almost as if how long is a piece of string, because frankly, we don't know how high these energy costs are going to go. And so it's hard to put an absolute number on it. Almost certainly more than £100 billion, because you need to factor in, of course, the help that will go to businesses as well that hitherto have not had the sort of price cap protections that the consumers have done. And so we're seeing potentially a lot of businesses thinking about going out of business unless there's help there too. But also, we don't know how tight Putin is going to clench his hand on those taps and keeping that gas and oil not flowing through in the usual way. Prices could go up further if there isn't a big spurt in supply, and so it could get even more expensive. At this stage, it's just impossible to know whether this is affordable or not.
And how does the Prime Minister, Liz Truss, square the circle of having campaigned on a cutting taxes ticket and then coming into office and spending really, really big? How do you do both?
It's interesting to note in Prime Minister's questions yesterday, almost every question that was asked of the new Prime Minister, she brought it back to one fundamental point: economic growth. And the point is, if you do grow your economy, if the size of the pie is bigger, you can keep the tax proportion the same and generate more revenue. This is the gamble that Liz Truss is taking, that her supply-side reforms and indeed some of her tax cuts will be able to grow the economy so that there's a larger economy, so that more can be spent on things without having to raise taxes. It sounds almost counterintuitive that sometimes tax cuts, but certainly supply-side reform as well, can actually grow the amount of money that the Exchequer takes in. But that's the gamble the government's taking.
It's a huge gamble, and I suppose at the end of the day, if that doesn't work, it's a loss in a general election.
Well, potentially. This is something that this premiership is really staking itself on, not on how things are presented. That's really out of the window. Liz Truss has said many times during the leadership campaign that she's not the flashiest, not the slickest politician, but her premiership is one that's predicated on policy. And so we will see such a policy focus. We did see it yesterday as well. And to be fair to Liz Truss, she is someone who does do detail. She used to run a policy think tank before she got into Parliament, and she has been known to be someone who does pore over the intricacies of policy. This will be a premiership, more so than any perhaps since Margaret Thatcher, that will live or die based on how the policy turns out rather than presentation.
Okay, look, we're going to take a quick break.
Yeah, we will indeed. After that, we're going to be talking about levelling up all over the country. We're going your views. Do you think you're going to be left behind with that? Do you think it's fair enough? Do you think you are being levelled? Let us know. We're going to be talking to the Minister responsible at the Secretary of State for Levelling Up Housing and Communities. He is Simon Clarke. And also, we've got some puppets in the studio. You may say no change there, but we're going to have some... There's a puppet of you before you start laughing.
Is there? Oh, no. Are you sure that wasn't the one of Liz Truss? We both have the same large forehead situation.
Oh, no, hers wasn't as large as this one. No, definitely wasn't her. Anyway, but there is a sculpture of Liz Truss as well.
Great. Well, I look forward to that. We'll see you after this.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to Thursday's forecast. We're looking at, again, another day of heavy showers across the UK, some thunderstorms possible, but there will be some sunny spells too. And you may be used to a chart like this now, low pressure dominating the weather scene for the UK. Sat right across the UK, meaning outbreaks of heavy rain and showers for many, particularly the nearer to the centre of the low you are. And you can see those showers swirling around first thing Thursday morning across parts of Wales, the West Country, but pushing north and eastwards as we head through the morning. Some heavy downpours also first thing across Scotland, where Met Office warning is in force here for a time. Then into the afternoon, we'll see a mixture of sunny spells and showers for many of us. Showers heavy, thundery in places, some hail, disruption to travel. Temperatures generally reaching the low 20s, still warm in the southeast for the time of year, 23 or 24 as a high. Through Thursday evening, those showers continue. We do have to watch an area of heavy rain moving in off the North Sea for southern parts of Scotland and northern England. This slowly pushes its way westwards as we head overnight. Elsewhere, we'll see a mixture of clear spells and showers, perhaps showers frequent along the south coast of England, where it will be quite breezy. Brisk wind across the northeast as well. But for everyone, temperatures generally 13 to 16 Celsius. So we have this cloud across parts of Scotland, outbreaks of rain pushing its way, swirling around across into northwestern parts of England and Wales. Elsewhere, a mixture of sunny spells and showers. Showers perhaps most frequent in the east on Friday, but still some rain in the west, but less intense than what we've seen over the last few days. Brisk winds around the coast, but inland temperatures still reaching the low 20s, perhaps feeling a little fresher than it has done throughout most of this week. And into the weekend, well, we should start to see those showers ease ahead of further rain, which is likely to arrive from the southwest as we head into Sunday. And temperatures still not too bad for early September, reaching the low 20s for many of us.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation.
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
On radio,
And online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Well, ahead of the Prime Minister announcing her energy plan, that's going to happen later this morning, we're now joined by the Secretary of State for Levelling Up, and he is Simon Clarke. And Secretary of State, first of all, congratulations on your new position.
Thank you very much, Eamonn. That's very kind. It's a huge privilege.
Good, I'm sure it is. Levelling Up, you know, it's a source of debate. Some people pretend they never hear it referred to their area. Some people will say they are aware of it. It's certainly something that has to be done. Let me ask you a very simple question. Today we're going to hear about energy and what is going to be done about that in supporting people. But actually you've got a levelling up issue on that front too, because the further north you go, it's likely you use more energy, I suppose, more lighting, more heating. And do you take that into account for people, or will the cap fix all of their concerns?
Well, I can't comment on the specifics of the policy before the Prime Minister makes her statement, which I hope you'll understand. But what we're aiming to do today is to provide clarity and comfort for people and for businesses that their bills won't go to unmanageable levels during the course of the winter and spring that lie ahead, and that we really do tackle this problem at source rather than go through a series of sort of piecemeal solutions offering a bit more money at a time. This is an attempt to address the costs in a way which provides predictability and certainty, and which will allay the concerns, I think, of so many people that they're going to face an unmanageable pressure. Now, clearly, there are small gradations in your energy usage depending on where you live, but we want to provide national certainty, and that's how the package is constructed.
And this package very much has your signature on it, doesn't it? Because, of course, before your promotion to Levelling Up as Chief Secretary to the Treasury, you were tasked with the job of briefing both the candidates to, and presumably...
No, that's not quite a fair summary of my role. Obviously, as part of the Treasury team, I'm aware of wider economic policy, but I certainly wasn't involved in briefing any part of the Rishi Sunak campaign.
Oh, OK. My understanding was both candidates were being briefed on what the government were doing behind the scenes during that period, but I'll take your word for it. So, looking at what Liz Truss is expected to announce, and given that she very much campaigned on a ticket of not handing out money to people, not believing in handouts, very much in cutting taxation, this is a big departure from that, much more of a move to the centre ground, a lot of people are saying. And, you know, it's a bit of a gamble for her, isn't it? It's a huge amount of money. We're talking 150 billion a year, more than that was spent on furlough.
Well, it would be a huge gamble for us not to act in the face of the kind of pressures that we're talking about here. I mean, the reality is that the price cap in October is set to go to over 3,500, but much more worryingly still, early next year, you know, there are forecasts of 5,500, 6,000, which are reasonably well founded on the current trajectories. So we absolutely have to take action if we're going to avoid millions of households being forced into fuel poverty, and crucially millions of jobs being at risk because businesses just won't be able to function with the energy costs that they're currently facing. So that's why we have to act. It is what clearly no government would want to choose to do, because it is an enormously expensive intervention, but it is the right magnitude of intervention to make sure that people and businesses can continue to operate with comfort and certainty over the course of the months ahead.
Talking about levelling up, former Chancellor Philip Hammond on the front of the Eye being quoted today saying the government has to level with people, that if you are going to spend this amount of money, if the government contributes anything, the taxpayer will have to pay. Says tax rises in the future are an inevitability.
Well, it's fair to say that the first thing we should do is to wait for the Prime Minister's statement to Parliament about this. But the other thing I would say is that Liz has been clear that we're going to break with the low growth trap, which we have inherited from successive governments. And it is the case that we're going to have a new economic framework. You cannot tax your way to growth. That is the central insight of her economic policy. We cannot continue, as the Labour Party, of course, still wants to just tax everything in sight and believe that that's going to get us out of the repeated low growth pattern that we've had to endure for too long. So we're going to be all about growth and enterprise, and this is the first step on what's going to be a journey of winning that argument, I think, with the wider public. And so, with respect to Philip Hammond, I don't agree with him on that.
Okay, Levelling Up Secretary Simon Clarke, good to talk to you. Thanks very much ahead of that big speech at 11:30 from our new Prime Minister. Thank you.
Now we have a little artistic section of the programme today. We're going to talk about sculpture. We're going to be talking about art in general, an interpretation of the human form. Images of Liz Truss outside Downing Street have been seen around the world, but there is one image of the new Prime Minister which has been going viral for a different reason, and the man responsible is the artist Wilfred Wood. And I think, Wilfred, first of all, we should see the image of the Prime Minister that is going viral around the world.
Oh, there
She
oh, wow,
is.
it's Queen Elizabeth I.
I thought that was you, Isabel.
Oh,
no?
thank you.
No.
what a compliment.
Wilfred, there it is. We can see, there's certain things we can see.
We can see.
But what's your interpretation of the Prime Minister? And don't worry, incidentally, everybody, if you're big Liz Truss fans, this gets worse, because very soon it's going to be me and it's going to be Isabel that you're going to see there. But anyway, I digress.
So, what, you want
your
to know...
interpretation, what do you see in Liz Truss thing?
Well, pork markets. That's the thing that I will associate Liz Truss with. And she's got a fairly sort of balanced face, but she has got quite a large forehead and quite a thick neck.
Ooh. It's so personal, isn't it? Look, for anyone who's listening to this on GB News Radio, we're looking at a clay model of Liz Truss, which, as we say, has gone viral.
It's plasticine.
But she does look very much like Queen Elizabeth I due to... You've made her hair slightly red, if I may say, considering she is a blonde. A very large forehead, and there's nothing wrong with that. And we're going to come on to a model of me. And, you know, I'm here for the girls with the big foreheads. It's not that bad. But it's good fun for you, isn't it? It's like, I suppose, cartoonists. You pick out the sort of the features that perhaps most people try not to draw attention to.
They're kind of mild caricatures, is how I think of them. Really, I'd like to think that I do portraits, but there is a caricature element to what I do.
But I tell you what, you model your choice of, I don't know what you would say, what choice of what? Fabric, not, whatever, it's plasticine, what I'm trying to say.
Material.
Your material of choice is plasticine,
yes,
which I certainly haven't touched since primary school.
Right.
Is plasticine particularly good for this sort of thing?
It's really quick and easy, and I can do a sculpture in a day, as opposed to polymer clay or real clay or something like that. It's colourful, it's very nice to use. The only problem with it is that it doesn't last.
What do you mean?
I mean, it'll... In a few years, it falls apart.
All right.
So then I squash
like
it up and make another one.
OK, so now can you tell the difference between Liz Truss and Isabel? Now, we're going to see...
Oh, she's beautiful. What a stunner.
With Rishi Sunak and Claire Balding either side of you. Liz Truss, or is it Isabel? And then... Oh, that's Liz Truss. No, is that not Liz Truss?
I think that's an absolute spitting image of me, to be honest. I think my husband would say that looks absolutely perfect.
OK, I'm bracing myself now. I haven't seen what I look like, but apparently I'm in there.
You're not?
I'm in there as well.
You're not allowed to be shown.
What?
Because you might be upset.
Oh, don't be ridiculous. Somebody go outside. Somebody bring in... Where is my plastic?
It's just out there.
I'll go and get it. I'll go and get it. How ridiculous.
In the meantime, is this Gordon Brown that we've got here?
No, it's Keir Starmer.
Oh, let's have a look. Come on, I want to have a look at all the models, if you'd be so kind. Rather than the empty chair. Oh, Keir Starmer, God love him. And a bit of Claire Balding having a cigarette at the same time. Does she have quite a small head, then?
She's just smaller scale than the others.
Right,
I don't think she's actually got a humanly small head, as far as I know. But she nips out for sneaky fags, that's the thing. There was some sort of Daily Mail thing saying Claire Balding, in spite of a recent cancer scare, still pops out for a fag behind the bike sheds at Aintree, or something like that.
Here he is.
Oh, good. What do you...
Look, it's me!
What do you think? Are you horrified?
This must be in my alcoholic. You see, it's so good that my team
protect me. Eamonn will be unhappy about seeing this.
Yeah.
As if I can't laugh at myself, for goodness sake.
I'd have to say, I think my likeness is more true than yours.
High blood pressure, I would say.
Yeah, I had no idea you were a normal colour. I saw photos in the summer and you looked an extremely brown colour, but yeah.
I must ask
he's
you,
normal. It's very unfair.
Do you feel uncomfortable facing your subjects, or is this part of the fun for you?
It's absolutely part of the fun if they're kind of famous people or celebs. What can be awkward is ordinary people who get upset.
But
That's
look,
not so funny.
As if I have fat cheeks, for goodness sake.
It doesn't look a bit like you. I'm not to be...
I interviewed Captain Kirk recently, William Shatner.
Yeah.
And I said, look, it was lovely talking to you. I said, do you think we look alike? He said, no. He said, but it was nice talking to you and your big, round Irish face. So that, I think, about captures up me and my big, round Irish face.
I've got to hold mine next to mine as well, so we can do a direct comparison.
Yeah.
Oh, she's heavy, just like me. Here we go. Let's just say goodbye to the show.
We should really. Thank you. Lovely talking to you. Thank you very much indeed. You've given us a laugh. And from Eamonn and Isabel in Plasticine.
We'll be back on Monday.
We will say goodbye to you.
Let's
Thank
have a
you
little
very
kiss.
much indeed.
Mwah.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to Thursday's forecast. We're looking at, again, another day of heavy showers across the UK, some thunderstorms possible, but there will be some sunny spells too. And you may be used to a chart like this now, low pressure dominating the weather scene for the UK. Sat right across the UK, meaning outbreaks of heavy rain and showers for many, particularly the nearer to the centre of the low you are. And you can see those showers swirling around first thing Thursday morning across parts of Wales, the West Country, but pushing north and eastwards as we head through the morning. Some heavy downpours also first thing across Scotland, where Met Office warning is in force here for a time. Then into the afternoon, we'll see a mixture of sunny spells and showers for many of us. Showers heavy, thundery in places, some hail, disruption to travel. Temperatures generally reaching the low 20s, still warm in the southeast for the time of year, 23 or 24 as a high. Through Thursday evening, those showers continue. We do have to watch an area of heavy rain moving in off the North Sea for southern parts of Scotland and northern England. This slowly pushes its way westwards as we head overnight. Elsewhere, we'll see a mixture of clear spells and showers, perhaps showers frequent along the south coast of England, where it will be quite breezy. Brisk wind across the northeast as well. But for everyone, temperatures generally 13 to 16 Celsius. So we have this cloud across parts of Scotland, outbreaks of rain pushing its way, swirling around across into northwestern parts of England and Wales. Elsewhere, a mixture of sunny spells and showers. Showers perhaps most frequent in the east on Friday, but still some rain in the west, but less intense than what we've seen over the last few days. Brisk winds around the coast, but inland temperatures still reaching the low 20s, perhaps feeling a little fresher than it has done throughout most of this week. And into the weekend, well, we should start to see those showers ease ahead of further rain, which is likely to arrive from the southwest as we head into Sunday. And temperatures still not too bad for early September, reaching the low 20s for many of us.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation.
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England,
Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
on radio, and online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Tom Harwood, and it's 9:31 this Thursday morning. Today we're expecting Prime Minister Liz Truss to lay out her seismic and expensive energy package. But is what we've heard of it right? We'll be analysing that. Plus, what's the new government doing on defence? All that to come after the headlines.
Good morning, it's 9:30. I'm Alice Porter in the GB newsroom. Liz Truss says she will deal hands-on with the energy crisis as she sets out her plans later today to help households and businesses with soaring energy bills. The newly appointed Prime Minister is expected to announce that domestic bills will be frozen at around £2,500. But Labour has accused the PM of writing a blank cheque to the energy giants by ruling out a windfall tax on profits. Health leaders are warning that the NHS will face extreme pressure in the weeks to come without government intervention. In a new letter to the Prime Minister, experts from across the health sector called for urgent action to address the pressure felt by frontline services. It comes as NHS England is set to release the latest figures for waiting times and cancelled operations in the next few minutes. The suspect in a stabbing in Canada that left 10 people dead and 18 others injured has died after he was captured by police. Miles Sanderson was taken to custody on Wednesday afternoon after a high-speed chase. Shortly after his arrest, police say he went into medical distress and was taken to a hospital in Saskatoon, where he was pronounced dead. Workers at Royal Mail are walking out today in further strikes in a dispute over pay and conditions. Staff in the Communication Workers Union will walk out for 2 days. They will also strike 48 hours on September the 30th and October the 1st. Pictures have been released showing Prince George, Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis on their first day at their new school. The siblings were accompanied by their parents, the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, for a settling-in session at Lambrook School in Berkshire. TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now it's back to the briefing with Tom Harwood.
Good morning, it's 9:33 and this is the briefing with me, Tom Harwood, on your TV and your radio. Well, our new Prime Minister will today lay out her plan to tackle the country's deepening energy crisis. As part of the proposed scheme, millions of households will almost certainly see their energy bills capped at around £2,500 a year, with the freeze paid for in the short term by borrowing. Well, this morning there's a new report from the Adam Smith Institute, aptly titled "In the Bleak Midwinter, How and How Not to Tackle the Energy Crisis." I'm joined now by its author, John MacDonald, Director of Strategy at the ASI. And John MacDonald, first of all, what does your report say would be a bad way to tackle this global energy crisis?
So our concern is that the government plans to freeze energy prices, as we've been hearing about, and we're not entirely sure about the particulars of how they plan to do this. And I want to be clear that it's not so much the scale of the intervention that we have a problem with. The economic reality is that it won't just be people on low incomes who are struggling now, but also people on middle incomes who will have significant problems without an extensive plan from the government. But the concern is that freezing prices does not encourage people to cut down their energy usage. If and where they can. As painful as it is, you need some sort of price signal to reduce energy consumption, especially when there's a big supply side problem like what we have at the moment. You know, in every market, high prices are a way to tell us that something is in short supply. And so our concern is that by effectively subsidizing energy consumption, people won't cut down where they can, and we'll be pushed further towards blackouts and potentially, rationing and then potentially blackouts this winter.
So when we're looking at rationing, it's interesting looking at the European Union proposal yesterday. The Commission said that they will be proposing rationing across Europe. Is that now, in your view, almost inevitable to come to the United Kingdom? Because not only did Liz Truss say that she, is Liz Truss's government indicating that it would like to freeze prices, but Liz Truss in the campaign said that she would be against any form of rationing. Can a price freeze really be there without rationing?
Well, I mean, I hope that I'm wrong. I hope that we can freeze prices if that is the policy option that the government is going to go for, and that, you know, there is enough supply secured such that we aren't pushed towards that. But from what we've seen in Europe, as you pointed out, it does seem as though that's the way things are going. France, for example, pursued a policy of freezing household energy bills, and are now asking people to ration their energy quite heavily. They're forcing private companies to ration energy, private businesses, such that they would face fines if they don't ration energy, and it's a very real possibility.
Very, very concerning that we could be seeing rationing, that we could be seeing blackouts as a result of this. What would be a preferable way to deliver to deliver so many families from the abject misery that so many people are seeing right now? Clearly, Liz Truss is someone who sits on the free market wing of economics. Clearly, she's someone who doesn't like interventions in the market like this. Is it therefore reasonable to assume that she's taken a calculation that things have frankly simply got so bad that in many ways what we are facing now is a situation of economic warfare with Russia, and in times of warfare, extraordinary government interventions funded by borrowing come about?
So as I mentioned earlier, it's not the scale of the policy that we have a problem with, but the mechanism by which it is being done is concerning. So the Adam Smith Institute is making the case that cash transfers, again, something else that Liz Truss is not particularly comfortable with, is probably the most efficient and effective way to deal with this. So we're making the case for this sort of the £325 cost of living payment, two of which have already been accounted for this year, be extended to a quarterly payment over the next course of, the next year, by the same criteria that's been used already. We also argue for an uprating of benefits to be in line with inflation right now. It's about a 10% uplift. And then crucially, we wanted to propose cash transfers to households based on energy usage last year, so before Putin's invasion of Ukraine, such that they would cover 75% of the increase in between now and then. So the difference in your bills that you would pay now as opposed to what you were paying effectively this time last year, would most of which, if you were in the same sort of lower household income bracket as the £350 payments, would be covered by the scheme. And we would probably also suggest that 50% of that increase is also covered by the government for households without a higher income taxpayer.
People who see themselves as more middling income individuals, even if they are in perhaps higher tax bands, people don't necessarily feel like they are particularly rich. Maybe they're not particularly asset rich. Maybe they pay large mortgage payments. Is perhaps the political calculation that has been made here that many Tory voters sit in that category? Perhaps they would be classed as above average income earners, and therefore protecting them and allowing their quality of life to continue unimpacted has been a big political calculation here.
Well, I hope not. I mean, I think the support has so far been fairly well targeted, and I would argue for that to continue. And I think, look, if you're talking about people in a technical classification of middle income, I think it is important to help those people, because I think given the amount of pressure they'll face with their energy bills, things will actually they'll transition from being more of just a crunch to a crisis for them at this stage as well.
Thank you so much for bringing us that rather bleak assessment of what we're likely to hear later today. Let's hope that at least some of the proposals that your report raises are considered by the government. Really interesting stuff there. But let's dive now into the detail a little bit further. The Prime Minister will, of course, lay out her plan to tackle the country's energy crisis at around 11:30 this morning. As part of the scheme, millions of households will see their energy bills capped at around £2,500 a year, although there might be that extra £400 payment as well expected to come in October. What does this all mean for you? Well, our business and economics editor Liam Halligan breaks down the detail of what Liz Truss could announce.
Prime Minister Liz Truss knows that she needs to tackle the UK's energy crisis as her very first priority. Household fuel bills are soaring, given that rising Ofgem energy price cap. And UK businesses benefit from no price cap protection whatsoever, so they're facing even sharper price spikes. Last autumn, the Ofgem energy regulator capped the energy bills for a typical family at £1,277. That cap rose sharply to almost £2,000 in April this year as wholesale gas prices soared, with gas used to generate electricity, of course. And we've recently learned that from October, household bills are set to rise above £3,500 a year, almost a threefold rise in less than 12 months. As well as households, the new government needs to consider the impact of this energy price crisis on firms. Across Britain, all kinds of companies, from pubs, shops and restaurants to steel makers and manufacturers, they're seeing their energy bills spiral, even more than households. That's because that Ofgem energy price cap doesn't apply to firms, tens of thousands of which across the country are now at risk of bankruptcy. So what is this new government energy support package going to look like? Now, Rishi Sunak, when he was Chancellor, he announced a £400 grant to help all households. On top of that, more vulnerable families, those on certain benefits, they're due to receive an additional £650 a year. But these policies were set when wholesale prices were much lower, so it now looks like we need even bolder measures. Truss and her team are now expected to freeze energy prices for 2 years at April 2022 levels, scrapping that recently announced October Ofgem price cap altogether. And that's likely to cost the government around £100 billion. That's more than furlough. At a stroke, it doubles government borrowing this year. The reality is that this huge bill could soar even more. As the war in Ukraine drags on, those wholesale energy prices, they remain high and extremely volatile, not least with Russia restricting supplies of gas to Western Europe. One reason this energy support package is so expensive is that ministers have now indicated there will be assistance announced for businesses as well as households. To me, that makes total sense, because if countless businesses fold, we could have a jobs crisis too. But the cost that Liz Truss is going to announce is going to be sky high, and there's concern financial markets could rebel as the government tries to borrow much more. So this energy package is risky. Can the UK afford to do it? Or can we afford not to?
Well, Liam Halligan there on the big numbers. But today, the Labour Party is using a new number a lot. So much that I'm surprised they haven't yet slapped it on the side of a big red bus. Yes, yesterday Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer told the Commons that energy companies will be making £170 billion in what he called excess profits, saying that taxing these could fund the £100 billion plus energy package expected to be announced later today. And he wasn't alone. No, this morning Shadow Energy Secretary Ed Miliband, remember him? Well, he's been claiming that oil and gas giants are making £170 billion in excess profits too. And Labour's Deputy Leader Angela Rayner has accused Liz Truss of being hell-bent on protecting energy firms, quote, £170 billion of excess profits. Clearly, this is a new comms strategy from Labour HQ, a new famous number for us all to remember, £170 billion. It sounds like a lot of money in extra profit. It's more than we spend on the entire NHS. It sounds almost unbelievable. Can the UK government really raise £170 billion in tax just like that easily, with no consequences? Well, the answer, bluntly, is no. The UK energy profits aren't soaring by £170 billion. What's the truth? Well, that number is global profits, only a fraction of which are made and are taxable in the UK. More than half of that number relates to the profits of foreign companies selling gas into the UK. In fact, as researcher and political analyst Joe Armitage has pointed out, according to public government documents, total profits for UK energy firms in 2021 was just £30 billion. And in 2022, they will be around £40 billion. And let's not forget, these are profits already taxed at 65%. So that leaves us with 35% of 40 billion. In total, extra profit of oil and gas giants this year that amounts to just £14 billion. No, not £170 billion, but £14 billion. Labour's implication has inflated that figure by, get this, 1,214%. Is it any wonder that Labour's own assessment of a windfall tax, which they made just last month, was that it would only raise around £8 billion? Now, we've thrown around a lot of numbers here, but one thing is absolutely clear. Implying that anything like £170 billion could be raised in a windfall tax, or that one could pay for today's energy policy in full, is nothing short of misinformation.